Unit School District Board of Education meeting for December 5th, 2022. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Cerrone?
Here.
Ms. Doyle?
Here.
Mr. Gatewood?
Present.
Ms. Johnson?
Present.
Mr. Ploger?
Present.
Ms. Simulton?
Present.
Ms. Swanson?
Yep. Stand for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So can I have a motion to move the recognition of the Pride winners to after the public truth and taxation hearing?
Okay, make a motion to move item 4.1 Pride winners to after the after item 5 public hearing on the public truth and taxation hearing.
Second.
Second.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye.
Ms. Swanson?
Aye.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Ms. Doyle?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Cerrone?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. 5.1 Public Truth and Taxation Hearing. We will now hold a truth and taxation public hearing for the 2022 levy. We will therefore have 2 opportunities for public comment tonight. The first opportunity will be during this public hearing on the 2022 levy. If you wish to make a comment about the 2022 levy, please make it during the public comment portion of this hearing. If you wish to make a comment about some other matter unrelated to the public hearing, you may do so during the second opportunity for public comment. Please make sure that you note it on the comment card during which portion you wish to speak. So this is the public hearing convened by the Board of Education and Community Unit School District 308 regarding our requirement for a truth and taxation public hearing for the 2022 levy. At this time, I will ask each member of the Board of Education, the district's attorney, and the district administrators who will speak to identify themselves for the record. At this time, I would like to ask our administrators to give any additional information and updates on the truth and taxation public hearing requirements and the 2022 levy. Dr. Pesky will now give his update on the 2022 levy.
Thank you. As you may recall, last meeting we reviewed our levy presentation in detail, but today I just wanted to point out a few illustrative points just so that the public understands exactly what we're doing. First of all, the levy is what we're asking the county for. It's not what we're going to get. It's what we're asking them for based on estimates, because right now the county doesn't even know what their actual assessments are. So we have to ask for a levy amount. The levy, what we ask for, is typically based on what was extended the previous year. So an example of that, at this time last year, I asked the Board of Education to adopt a levy that was about $112 million. The year before we got 106. So that was 4.99%. It was just below the 5% truth and taxation limit, so we didn't have to hold this hearing. And last year, while we asked for 112 million, we were only legally qualified for 110. So when the county finished their calculations in February, March, and April, they actually determined that, no, you don't qualify for 112, you only qualify for 110. So that's what we got. So this year, one of the things is our CPI has been very low the last 24 years, anywhere from 0.7% to 2%. This year, the CPI is actually at 7%. But according to the property tax extension limitation law, we're limited to 5% to extend the levy that we got last year. So the $110 million, we're only legally able to get 5% more this year, which would be about 100, instead of 110, it would be $115 million. That in and of itself puts us over the 5% limit where we have to go to a truth in taxation hearing to let the public know that the economy CPI went up. The district is asking for more than 5%. But on top of that, there's a little caveat too. If you drive down Wolf's Crossing Road, you'll notice all the developments happening down on Eola and by Douglas and in between. All of that new property also needs to get added into our EAV. Is that property valued right now? Like, did our property or our EAV increase by $5 million, $20 million, or $100 million? It depends on how much those developments were built out and are being lived in. So for the next few years, the county offices are going to be determining how much of that new property is going to contribute to our EAV. So we build not only the 5% because of CPI, but we also build in a little bit what we call ballooning the levy. We ask for more than what we know we're going to get, just in case our estimates are wrong. I only planned on there being about $20 million of new growth. So that put our levy up to about 6%. But just in case I was wrong, I'm balloon the levy up to say that, what if there's $100 million in growth? And so I'm going to ask the county or file a levy for $121 million, knowing that I'll probably only get about $117 million. So there was an article that just came out from WSPY, and I wanted to correct a few things in that article if I could. Number one, they start off the article saying that this is the second straight year that we've asked for a 9.5% levy. That's not accurate. Last year we asked for a 4.99. This year we're asking for a 9.58. So it's only been 1 year that we've done this. The last time the district had to actually do a truth in taxation hearing was in 2010, because that's when CPI, there were some issues there. There was a lot of growth, a lot of development. So they actually ballooned the levy by 20% in 2010. They didn't get 20% more than the previous year, but they asked for it. They only got what they were legally qualified for. So the last time that we asked for more than a 5% levy was in 2010. But one thing we did do is the district between 2012 and 2016, they did hold the levy flat. And what that means is in 2012, the district qualified for $88 million from the levy. Well, the next year they qualified, our levy goes up about $4 to $5 million a year. So 88 million, it should have gone up to about 93 million the next year, and it did. Then based on CPI, it should have gone up to 94.5 million, but instead of asking for 94.5 million, the district only asked for 93 million. They held it flat to what it was the previous year. They didn't ask for what they could have legally gotten. Then the next year they did it again. They would have qualified for 95 million, but they actually only asked for 93 million. And then a third year in a row, they could have qualified for an additional 96 million, but they only asked for 93 million. The issue with the levy is, the issue with not levying or adding the levy to that is you qualify for what you got the previous year based on the true assessed value of all the properties in the district. And at the time, in 2016, the properties were worth $96 million, but the district only asked for 93. So that's what we call in the finance world, they left $3 million on the table. You would think that's just for that year, but that actually, the levy is based on what you got the previous year, and then it's multiplied by CPI every year after that. So in reality, we lost on $3 million that year. Now you multiply that by CPI, but you know, that was 93 million multiplied by CPI, where it could have been 96 million multiplied by CPI. So that has a cumulative compounding effect. So based on the 3 years of not levying the full amount, the district actually has not realized $35 million in revenue from 2013 to today, And every year, we will be $5 million less being collected from the taxpayers, $5 million every year because of not levying the full amount. So I hope that that makes sense. And
Yes.
that information, it was a little misrepresented in the article that came out from WSPI, but I'll call Mark and find out if he can clarify that with me.
So that's very sobering when you're thinking about $36 million that we could have had in our coffers to do so many things for our district and for our students.
Yep.
But because the levy was held flat, we have missed that opportunity and will continue to miss that opportunity every year to the tune of about $6 million.
Correct. I think the other point that brings up as well is I think in the article here, it seems kind of alarmist. It says that we're going to generate $11 million in additional revenue. It's kind of misleading. The truth of the matter is what the district or the community needs to look at is our tax rate. Our tax rate for education last year was about 4.8%. This year it'll be 4.7%. So the taxes are going down 1%. But the amount of money we're collecting is more. So it's a little bit more, but the tax rate is less. So I think the thing to compare is what is our tax rate compared to other surrounding school districts? And you'll find that our tax rate, our operational tax rate is pretty good. The one thing that adds to and makes Oswego a little bit more in terms of the tax rate is we do have our long-term borrowing, which adds an additional 1.6%. So our tax rate goes from 4.6 plus that 1.6, so we're up into the 6.5% margins on our taxes for education. And again, that 1.6% borrowed tax rate is set to come down in 2027 a little bit, then in 2030, and then it'll be paid off in 2034. And then we'll be back to a normal operating tax rate of 4.6%.
But that was the referendum.
That was the referendum.
Like 20 years ago.
2004.
Was it 450 million, 600 million?
Correct.
So that's a good quarter of the tax rate.
Correct.
And-
And that was authorized by the community to issue those bonds, but there was a tax implication to that. We need to pay those bonds off.
Yeah.
Although it's a good history lesson, yes, the community, but let us not forget that also involved state legislation to allow districts to go that far into debt.
Yeah.
And but you're right. I mean, there was the community asked. They went to legislators in the area and asked them to pass that so that we could do this. And that's a piece that's left out many times in the community. And I'm not blaming our legislator at the time. Listen. And Tom Cross asked, "What do you want from us? What can we do to help you?" And there was enormous growth at the time. There was not a real plan. There was just reckless abandon with growth, and that's what needed to get done. And what sometimes doesn't get realized, though, is that just because something happens doesn't mean it goes away, and we continue to pay. And that is why we feel the pinch. The one thing you brought up, neighboring districts, that I wish I could see is, it's interesting to me when I read that article and I read that headline. And to be honest with you, I don't blame people for reading the headline and getting ticked off, right? I don't blame people. Hey, I read the headline, I get ticked off. And there's nobody walking around saying, "Oh, I want a levy." I mean, my alarm went off at 5 a.m. this morning. I didn't say, "Yeah, good, I get to get up this morning at 5 a.m." So there's nobody walking around saying, "Oh, can I please levy this year," right? There's nobody doing that, right? But it's interesting to me that when Yorkville levies above 5%, they don't quite get the same headline as Oswego, and that's very fascinating to me. And as I tell people, what's not being said is almost as imperative and interesting as what is being said, and that's fascinating. So it's not about whether we levy or not. That's very interesting, and I'll ask this question because I know you're going to get to this, and I was going to ask later, but I'll ask right now. So if we don't levy, can we balance our budget without cuts?
No, I think in our last model, we looked, and if we did not levy, we were about $1.6 million in cuts for next year, if we don't collect the full levy.
If we don't levy, can we build that 20% fund reserve by 2026 without cuts?
Absolutely not.
If we don't levy, can we build a general maintenance fund which has nothing in it right now without cuts?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so nobody wakes up and says, can I please levy? Nobody does that. The real question is, do we levy or do we cut? That's the question.
I think a better title for this article would have been, the state of Illinois considers larger tax levies because of CPI. It's not just Oswego.
Yeah. So one of the things I was thinking about when we talked about the opportunity lost for that $35 million was in like 2015, 2016. That's when our board seats were full of people because we were cutting teachers, we were cutting all sorts of things because we didn't have that $35 million. And I remember over like the next 2 or 3 or 4 years, we had to cut $25 million. What's this?
It was 4 years of pain.
Yeah, 4 years of pain because we didn't have the money to do the things. I mean, we were cutting junior high sports, and we were cutting administration staff, we were cutting teachers because we didn't levy.
We were
And-
raising class sizes, we were increasing our
Yes.
fees. There was 4 years of lists that we went through.
And those
meeting
things
after
have
meeting
not
after
gone
meeting.
away.
No.
Those things, like there are times where like I still feel these things today, and like I can see those as being the residual and fingerprints of those cuts from those 4 years. It's not like we have gotten out of the woods. And
If I may say,
yeah, go ahead.
no, if I may say so, Jared, to your point of what we're not talking about, I think there's a variety of things we're not talking about, but I'd like to bring up one tonight, which is the role of public education in our community and those that value it and those that don't. And I think, when I vote tonight, I'm voting on it because I truly and wholly believe in public education and preserving democracy, from the local level up. And so you can't be disappointed in the fact that we have busing issues, or the fact that our buildings are crumbling, or the fact that we don't have air conditioning one day, or the fact that we don't have, or that we have high turnover. All of that stuff matters, and all of that stuff at the end of the day, if you want to say something about it on social media or somewhere else, that's great, but then you've got to come with a solution, right? And so that's what I think people are forgetting. And then the compounding interest of not levying over time has such a crucial and negatively dramatic impact on all of these things. And so I think that's incredibly important. And then one other question I have is, and maybe it's me, but who is no longer on the board, because we're now a 6-member board. So I just want to mention something.
Yeah, in the article, they talk about a 6-member board. They forgot about number 7.
Right.
Okay, so we are still a 7-member board.
Yes, yes, we are.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification.
And I was going to talk about this later, but I mean, as long as we're on this topic, they're projecting a surplus in the state budget this year and next year, but everybody's warning that in the 3rd year, there's a deficit coming. And I mean, we have to prepare for that. And when we did those projections with EBF, without EBF, you're talking about
$4 million. Yeah.
right. So, hey, again, nobody wakes up in the morning and says, please, can I levy today? No one says that. There's no one running around saying that. But let's have the real conversation. You want to cut or you want to levy? Hey, if you want to cut, come with your list.
So I appreciate the one thing I do like about these hearings is we have another opportunity to address the impact of levying, which is an important part of what we do. So I appreciate the input from the board and asking the questions, to kind of pushing the administration to really find out financially on a local revenue source, why are we where we are. I think we're getting closer to really understanding that. But at this point in the hearing too, unless there's anything else, I think just turning it over to the community, see if anybody has any questions or comments about the levy.
Okay, so we move to 5.2, public comment on tax levy. Is there anyone who would like to make public comment on the tax levy? There's one. Okay, let me read this. And now the board asks members of the public to comment on the 2022 levy. When the secretary calls your name, I ask that you come to the microphone, state your name for the public record, and provide your feedback. Please note that the comments are limited to 3 minutes per person, and that neither the board nor administration will be answering any questions during this time. Thank you for your comments.
Hi, I'm Donna Sawicki. I'm also a township trustee, so we're doing our levy right now as well. And so my question is, and whether you can answer this right now or not, but so I have my spreadsheets for township, and they broke it down, and like they gave an example here of a home worth $278,000. And then they break it down for us and say, if we do 0% levy, the taxpayers get 42 cents. Township is way less money. We get a 42-cent credit. Or if we do a 1% increase, we raise the taxes by 13 cents for this one taxpayer. And then 2%, it's 68 cents, and so forth. So do you guys have this breakdown? And then also, like, we were also able to tell, they were able to tell us already that if we didn't, so if we don't increase our levy, we would lose out on new construction. Right now it's around 10,000, but they had a number. And I know it's still estimates, but do you have these numbers, and do you have a breakdown, or do you guys get to see how that looks for the taxpayers? When
Yeah, Donna, and what I would say is, if you look at our meeting last month,
Is that okay?
I'm gonna, so we're not answering any questions during this time, and so he will need to get back with you, or you will need to connect
Okay.
with each other, okay?
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so at this time, we will close the public hearing if there are no.
oh, there was one.
Oh,
more.
there's one more? Oh, come on up.
Spur of the moment. Name is Scott Pugsley, and actually I was going to address this gentleman right over here did make the comment, well, right, about asking a question, right? So I guess, and then Donna asked a question, and you said, well, we're not answering questions. So I guess, and I don't really have a question to ask if you're not going to answer the question, but I figure I'm going to do it anyway.
No,
The
you could.
4.99, is that a tax levy? So the question is, do we have a tax levy or not? Is the 4.99 a tax levy, or is the increase over the 4.99%?
And if you can give your name to Ursula, she will make sure you get the answer to that question.
Okay, fair enough.
And I'll definitely follow up with you on that one.
Appreciate it, thank you. Give it to you. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, now if there are no, oh,
you have
come
one
on.
more?
Yep.
My name is Kevin Johnson, Senior Vice President for a financial services company. And I understand the levy process. I've been with companies where we've had to reduce budgets by $500 million. So I would like to provide assistance in looking at your spreadsheet of items to decide. We had to decide things you can't do. Understanding that the taxpayers have already been hit with gas prices, food prices, and everything else, is that accommodated within understanding what you're going to levy? I hear what you're saying year over year, but every year is not the same. So within the company, we have to look at the economic situation of America, regardless of what happened last year or 4 years ago, or what might happen next year. So we're in the midst of trying to understand the recession that's coming. And those have to be in the thoughts roads that don't get built because people can't afford to do those things. Companies can't get the things that they need because they might not exist because they don't make it through the recession. So you have to understand all of these items, look at all the items on your list and start prioritizing. I know you guys know this. But sometimes you got to do things that are unprofitable in order to not impact the taxpayer who's already being impacted and will further be impacted by a recession. You can't continue to ask them for mistakes made in the past. You just can't do it. But I would love the opportunity to sit down with whomever has to make these decisions and just share my experiences throughout the last 5 to 10 years and how we had to go through and make some hard decisions in order to meet that budget without impacting the minimal amount of the public that we had to. It's possible, but you just can't look at it year over year. It doesn't work that way. Your home budget doesn't work that way. So why would any other budget work that way? So just would like the opportunity to sit down. There might be some frivolous items that don't need to be on the list, can't afford to be on the list in this economic time. So you have to look at things economically, not year over year. It doesn't work that way. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. If you'll just see Ursula for your information.
I have.
You have it?
Steve was going to make a regular public comment.
Great, thank you. All right, is that everyone? So at this time, we will close the public hearing. We'll move back to 4.1, recognition of Pride winners.
All right, item 4.1 is to recognize our teachers and staff as part of our Pride program. So I'd ask the board to please join me out front as we honor our recipients for the month of November and December.
That's you.
Given the 2 short months with breaks in November and December, we did combine. So tonight is our November/December Pride Recognition Program winners. Tonight we acknowledge our Pride winners. Pride stands for proudly recognizing individuals demonstrating excellence. The Board of Education implemented this program in the fall of 2015 to recognize, promote, and celebrate the many contributions made by teachers and employees across our district. The Teachers of the Month are sponsored by Allied First Bank. This recognizes what our teachers do day in and day out for the continued growth and success of our students. Awardees, as your name is called, please come forward to be congratulated by the board and Dr. Sparlin. Congratulations to the following teachers for having been recognized as the November/December Teachers of the Month. Stephanie Allen, interventionist at Oswego East High School. Beth Prigodich, English teacher at Oswego High School. Caitlin Willman, interventionist at Grant Park Elementary. And Julie Wolf, speech and language pathologist at Wolf's Crossing. Congratulate each of you teachers, and at this time we're going to invite any of our building administrators that are present here this evening to come forward and join our awardees and the board for a photo. Thank you all. Congratulations. Our next awardees this evening are the Employees of the Month, which are co-sponsored by Chick-fil-A and Huntington Learning Center. This award is given in appreciation of our employees who go above and beyond and are always willing to lend a hand. Awardees, if your name is called, please come forward to be congratulated. Tonight, for our November/December Employees of the Month, we present Kelly Budd, principal of Lakewood Creek Elementary. And also Nicole Weaver, school psychologist at Fox Chase Elementary. And again, at this time, we'll invite any building administrators present this evening to join their employees and the board for a photo. Congratulations to all of our winners this evening, and we thank our generous district partners, Allied First Bank, Chick-fil-A, Huntington Learning Center, and Culver's for helping to make this program such a success. We'd also like to thank each person who nominated individuals this month. Thank you.
Ursula, do we have any more comments? Okay.
5.
Okay. So let's see. Is that high volume or no? Is it regular? Okay. Okay, 6.1, public comment. On behalf of the Board of Education, I would like to thank the public for attending tonight's meeting. We value the feedback we receive from our residents and encourage everyone to take an active interest in their public school system. Residents interested in speaking to the board this evening are asked to have completed a comment card and presented it to the secretary to the board. When the secretary calls your name, I ask that you come to the microphone, state your name for the public record, and provide your feedback. Please note that comments are limited to 5 minutes per person and that no discussion of personnel matters or responses to questions are permitted. The board does not participate in discussion during public comment. Follow-up to your questions or concerns will be addressed by administration through the contact information provided on the comment card. Thank you.
Kevin Johnson.
Kevin Johnson. Just had a comment, came to my attention that there was a book removed from the curriculum, To Kill a Mockingbird. And as I watched over the pandemic over the last couple of years and watched this community be torn apart by differences of opinion, and some of the things that were being discussed around whether this book should be in the curriculum or not, it saddened me to understand the reasons for why. I think that we're sheltering our children a bit. I'm a father within a mixed family, and I'm responsible for the way my kids behave and teach them my philosophies about life. There's no word in any book that's going to destroy that. They need to understand American history, the good, the bad, the ugly, to understand how we've progressed. We can't hide that from them. It wasn't hidden from me. And I think it benefited me overall. I manage a team of 300 plus people, all disciplines, all countries. And the things I learned in school from the variety of things that we read, not always good, but I learned to think for myself over time and decide for me what was best. It's not like these kids are not going to learn these things outside of the school system. At least here it can be controlled. Now, I would say you know, things of the sexual nature and things that are age inappropriate, that needs to be addressed. But as for things that these kids hear every day, we give these kids phones like it was no tomorrow. They can call up anything they want to see and hear. We can't hide things from them. It's not necessary. That's the parents' job, is to control what the kids, how the kids learn from what they read. And so they can be able to ask questions about the history of this country. So I would ask that when decisions like that are made, that we understand the things that we went through. You know, any of you that are close to my age, I'm 56. So there's things that I learned going to school, things that were said, probably now couldn't be said. But I'm better for it. I believe that they would be better for it. I think we shelter them way too much, way too much. They don't learn the things they need to learn. They have no idea to handle adversity as we did. Don't take that from them. That's all I got.
Lisa D'Alicia.
Hi, my name is Lisa D'Alessio, and I'd like to thank the Board of Education and Dr. Sparlin for listening to my taxpayer concerns this evening. The information that follows is from a post on Facebook's SOS and 308 platform dated October 27th, 2022, and was originally sent to the Board of Education and Dr. Sparlin on September 25th, 2022. The post states that there are 59 teaching assistant vacancies in the district, and due to the shortage, SD308 is placing district teachers in the TA positions during their lunches and plan periods. These teachers are being paid their hourly rates, which range from $31.22 an hour to $77.70 an hour to sub as TAs. Please note, the district TA's hourly rates range from $14.50 an hour to $15.56 an hour. Because the district still can't fill all of the vacant TA positions, they are also using contract companies to acquire TAs. The district is currently paying the TA contracting company People 2.0 over $49,500 a year for one contract TA, which equals an hourly rate to the district of $40.71 an hour. If SD308 were to continue using district teachers sub-TAs through the end of the school year, they will have spent over $500,000 of hard-earned taxpayer dollars from just 2 schools in the district. I'd like to ask the taxpayers, would you like to see over $500,000 of your tax dollars spent on district teacher sub-TAs and contract TAs, or would you like to see that money help mitigate student fees, activity fees, and parking fees? If SD308 is so wasteful in their spending, why would any taxpayer want to support future referendums? The solution is simple. Raise the starting TA salary to a rate that is lucrative enough to prevent current TAs from resigning and to attract employees from other industries whose hourly rates are lower than the starting salary the district would be offering TAs. Dr. Sparlin, at the last board meeting you stated, and I quote, "When you compare salaries, even school districts that have higher salaries are still having the issue of filling the teacher assistant positions," end quote. What you did not mention is SD308's starting TA salary is $14.50 an hour, the lowest starting rate of the area districts, and although other districts have slightly higher rates, Lyons Township High School has a starting hourly rate of $18.89 an hour, and as of Wednesday, November 29th, has only 1 sped TA vacancy versus Oswego East's 9 TA sped vacancies and Oswego High School's 10 TA sped vacancies. The district is currently paying its teachers a minimum of $31.22 an hour to sub for TAs. As of November 21st, Oswego East had 4 contract TAs whose combined annual salary is costing the district more than $198,000 this school year. If you were to pay TAs $20 an hour, you'd be saving the district over $301,000 from Oswego East alone. At the last board meeting, Dr. Petsky spoke of a $20,000 contract agreement and vendor partnership spending threshold. What actions are taken once that threshold is hit? If checks and balances were in place, the district would have seen all of the different TA contracts that were required and the cost to the district. At that meeting, the board members were not aware of all of the TA contracts the district had secured. The following companies have or are currently being paid for contract sub-TAs: AHS Global, EDU Healthcare, Maxim Healthcare, People 2.0, and the Stepping Stones Group. I'd like the board to follow up with me on the answer to this question. Exactly how much money has the district spent, as of today, on contract and district teacher sub-TAs? I ask that SD308 set the precedent for area school districts to follow, and that it increase TA salaries to a rate that will attract and retain TAs. If that rate doesn't work, then raise it again. I firmly believe that all of the district TA jobs will be filled at a rate lower than the current floor rate of $31.22 an hour, the amount currently paid to district teacher subs. Thank you.
Bernice Lamas.
Hello, my name is Bernice Lamas. I was at at OEHS for almost 5 years. I truly enjoyed working with the students and staff at OE. I actually miss it very much. It was very rewarding. Last winter, my former coworker and I, Dawn Engel, who's here as well, both resigned because we found a job with a higher hourly rate. If TA salaries were raised, I would definitely reconsider returning to a job that I love. Thank you for your time.
Michelle Klein.
My name is Michelle Klein, an Oswego resident for almost 10 years now with 3 children. I'm here to read an excerpt from a book currently in our Oswego 308 district library. And I'm also asking the district to put this and other such books in a secured adult section, 18 and older or with parental consent. As it currently is labeled under young adult, I'd like to remind everyone listening that a young adult is in fact a minor. The name of the book is called Push. It's a novel by Sapphire. Hurt now again, I think my daddy. He stink the white shit drip off his dick. Lick it, I hate that. But then I feel the hot sauce, hot cha-cha feeling when he be fucking me. I get so confused. I hate him. But my pussy be popping. He say that, big mama, your pussy is popping. I hate myself when I feel good. That's from page 50. Page 99. Daddy sick me, disgust me, but still he sex me up. I nausea in my stomach, but hot tight in my twat, and I think I want it back. The smell of the bedroom, the hurt, that he slapped my face, till it sting in my ears sing separate songs from each other, call me names, pump my pussy in and out, aw I come. He bite me hard, a hump, he slam his hips into me hard. I scream pain, he come, he slap my thighs like cowboys do horses on TV shiver. Orgasm in me, his body shaking, grab me, calling me fat mama, big hole. You love it, say you love it. I wanna, say I don't. I wanna say I'm a child. But my pussy popping like grease in frying pan. He slam me again, his dick soft, he starts sucking my titty. Then my body take me over again like shocks after earthquakes. Shiver me, I come again. My body into mine, I hate it coming. Afterward I go bathroom, I smear shit on my face. This is in the high school for minors to read. And I know there are plenty other that are labeled under young adult. Can you please look into the books that are being approved into our district? Thank you.
Marchie Hardigan.
President Simulton and the district board members. My name is Haraji Hardigan, and I'm a resident and taxpayer in the district since 2006. On top of being a taxpayer, I hit the trifecta. I am also a special needs parent and an employee of the district as a special ed teaching assistant. My youngest daughter is a junior at OE. She is physically challenged along with a host of other issues. The reason for my visit here today is that as a special needs teaching assistant, I can tell you that we are severely underpaid and understaffed. I'm here asking that the school board members do something to change this. I am also here to represent the special needs community, which is the largest minority group in the nation. Our children are suffering, our children's IEPs are being violated, and they deserve better. Currently, the district is hiring contract people from outside agencies at much higher rates than our employees make. We had a contract TA at OE that refused to assist with toileting duties for her student. She didn't take the time to find out how to help her student be successful. This mostly nonverbal student was troubled by this TA who didn't make an effort to make her feel more comfortable, so the student acted out. This contract TA, who was making at least $10 more an hour than every other TA in this district, quit last week because she couldn't handle the magnitude of the job. She lasted just a few short weeks. At the same time, the district is using teachers to fill in for our vacant TA positions, not sick calls, not personal leave, unfilled positions. Our pay is so minimal that no one is interested in taking the job. Teachers are subbing an average of 28 class periods a day at our school alone. They are, by contract, making $31 to almost $80 an hour. They're working through planned periods and lunches to fill the vacancies. However, oftentimes, they are not present the entire class period and are working on their own classwork rather than assisting students in the classroom. While they're filling the legal obligation that the district has to have staff members in the room, they don't even engage with the students. If the district paid a higher wage in order to attract TAs and retain the ones that we have, those TAs would be creating relationships with the students. They would know what their IEP accommodations are and would make sure that they are met. They would be trying their best to help the students achieve their highest potential. I'd like to tell you about my first year that I transferred here to OE. I was assigned as a one-on-one with an autistic freshman student who turned out to be a very difficult student to work with. It took him a long time to trust me and feel comfortable around me, as is typical with many special needs students. Eventually, he realized that I was in his corner. One afternoon in March, he got off the bus and was angry about something. He entered the building and threw his backpack across the hallway, almost hitting a group of students, then punched a door and a fire extinguisher case. He picked up his backpack and came straight to find me, as he knew that I was the one person that would help him calm down before he did something that would likely hurt him or others. This is the same student who didn't even acknowledge my presence for weeks. It took a long time to establish that trust and create the relationship that we had, but that's what we do. We put in the time. We get to know our students. We figure out how best to help them, and that doesn't happen when teachers are just filling a space or when contract TAs are there and don't have a vested interest in the district, the school, or the students. This wasteful spending on contract TAs and teacher subbing as TAs rather than raising the rates of the TAs across the board is hurting students, creating a hostile work environment, and bringing down morale to an all-time low. Last week, our school lost another TA to a higher paying job. I can think of about 5 more that have left in the recent past, and I guarantee you she's not going to be the last. On tonight's agenda, the Finance Department has given you a breakdown of contracts. Please make note that these expenditures are through last year. I ask you to please ask them for the same report from the start of this fiscal year through the current time. You will be shocked at the hemorrhaging of funds. This needs to be fixed, and note that it doesn't include the ridiculous amount of salary overages being paid to teachers that are subbing as TAs. That's contracts only. I will add that I have reviewed line by line the last 2 bill listings. On the current bill listing, the district is paying over $76,000 to contract TAs through 5 different companies. That includes the bills where the description is actually listed. There's another $97,000 where there is no description of the type of service being contracted. At a starting rate of $14.50 an hour for TAs, $76,000 equates to 4.5 full-time employees for an entire year, not a bi-monthly bill listing. I challenge this board to a few things. First, start asking questions and pay attention to what's being spent. Second, instruct the district to pay more wise choices with their spending, such as raising the rates of TAs in order to hire people for the empty position and retain the dedicated staff that we do have. And last, I challenge each and every one of you to come to OE or any other school in this district that has a special program. Don't just come on a tour, actually spend a minimum of a half a day shadowing a special ed TA. You will be shocked at what we do, and when you realize that the teaching assistant staff starting at $14.50, that's when you will realize that the teaching assistant staff starting at $14.50 deserves a wage adjustment. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, item 7.1 is a budget presentation. This is one of our annual monthly reports that are provided through the Board of Education through our strategic plan. So, Dr. Petsky, it's all yours.
Great, and again, this is our Envision 308 strategic plan, just an update on from the budget element items that we had, where we were, where we are, and where we're going. So the three budget priorities that we have are listed in the dark blue. So first is maintaining a balanced budget each year. The second point is to build a 20% fund balance reserve by 2026 to avoid short-term borrowing, and then also explore ways to increase private and grant funding. The other two in light blue are related to the facilities, and we'll talk about those at another time. So where we were, our indicators of success, this time last January, we had our goal, which was to just to kind of continue to monitor our expenses and revenue and stay current on federal, state, and local funding sources. And at that time, we said that our indicators of success were to get more training in the finance department on Infinite Visions, since we had implemented that system during COVID and migrated to that system, to really see now that we had a year and a half under our belts with the new system, how that was working. Identify systemic supports for Infinite Visions budgeting, accounting, and monitoring. Take a look at the continued focus on budget assumptions and district priorities, and then also to involve the Finance and Facility Committee on a deeper understanding of the levy process, budgeting, and state evidence-based funding metrics that we use in addition to our audit. So this next slide just kind of talks about some updates on the budget. So based on that goal, what's happened? I'm happy to say that we've had several finance department people, including myself, participate in Infinite Visions training. They actually offer certification. So we're certified finance systems users, and we were able to create a host of training for school secretaries and buildings who to kind of better assist their financial responsibilities. We've also been able to establish a budget manager process with monthly financial oversight. So looking at the bills that are paid and looking at the budget managers, what they're spending, where they are with their budgets, and offer any support that we can in that area. That's also reflected in every month we provide the Board of Education with a financial report, which has our kind of cumulative spending year to date. And that's one of the reports that we monitor in the finance department. We also are continuing just a deeper focus on budget assumptions and district priorities in our budget planning process as we move forward. We've got a standing agenda item with the Finance and Facility Committee, so at any meeting we can talk about the budget, the levy, where we are with those processes, the collection, things of that nature. And then we've also conducted a historical review of the district's budgets from general state aid and the impact that evidence-based funding has had for the district. So we've been very busy in the finance office and looking forward to moving on. So where we're going this next year, you'll notice here that goal has changed from where it was in 2021 on monitoring expenses and revenues. Now we're actually on to a larger expense and revenue. So our 22-23 goal this year is to have the HR department and payroll department work together on a position control study. As you know, we've got a $250 million budget, and of that, 80 to 85% of our budget is salary and benefits. So that's about $200 million. So what we're doing is we're right now coordinating that transition of payroll. It's been very interesting. The coordination, there's a huge financial element in the payroll operation for the district, but because it's 80 to 85% of the budget, but it's also the staffing picture. So HR with the position control has quite a bit of information that we are getting to the bottom of. We've hired and trained 2 new payroll coordinators in Infinite Vision, and that's been happening since July, August, and September, and they've been taking on the payroll responsibilities. We've conducted an operation department office staffing review and position control. So before I go out to the rest of the district to see where we are with those positions, we actually have done that for all of our departments. So finance, technology, transportation, and buildings and grounds. We've done a staff position control process for that. So I'll be working with our finance department to see how to bring what we've learned through our own internal position control to the other departments. We are implementing, as you remember from the last slide, we've established a budget manager process. It's one of those things where you don't really bring people together to say, hey, today we're going to talk about that, budgeting. You kind of do it in succession. So what we do here in January and February, we are going to once again be meeting with all the budget managers to start talking about their spending for this year, where they are at mid-year, and what they're going to be looking at for their budgets or their needs for next year. And that's where we work in these budget manager processes and priorities. So to make sure that the buildings are aware of, or the budget managers are aware of those assumptions. Kind of right now, the budget, I'm new to the position as well. We've been doing a lot of incremental line increases, budgeting like 1% per year. This is where we start talking about eventually looking at some different items. Where can we differentiate between something that can be a zero-based budget line item versus something that does have to be incremental? Maybe it's a school improvement goal. Maybe it's a one-time purchase. So we'll be taking a look at those different budgeting models with our managers. We've also got a continued focus on budget assumptions and district priorities, working with all the departments on what those needs are. And the big thing, too, is creating more education opportunities. So last year, we focused on the Finance and Facility Committee, and we've kind of got that up and running. And this year, we've had the privilege of working with the Community Advisory Board in helping more community members get a deeper understanding of local revenue, state revenue metrics, and to help advocate or educate their people in the neighborhood so that they can help understand where we are financially. So that's and that is where we're going. So that's the budget item. The second one is building a fund balance, the second goal that we've got. So here last year, our goal was to explore the current budgeting practices and align our district educational needs. Here we worked with Forecast 5 to build accurate projection models for near and long-term revenues. We've tied district priorities to those models as we project out our needs, and we formalize that cash flow. So how do the fund balances that we have on hand affect our cash flow? As you know, for a school district, we basically receive 2 large revenue sums in the year, and yet we spend money every month, twice a month, on a regular basis. So aligning the cash flow and making sure that the fund balance we have is aligned to those projections. And as you know, we have to borrow money to the tune of about $25 million per year for our cash flow purposes because we do not have the fund balance. So we have to borrow money to pay our cash flow until we realize our revenues. So that's a conversation that we've been having quite a bit. So what success did we make there? Well, based on that goal, we did work with Forecast 5, and we have really tuned in the 5-year projections, and we've got a really good understanding of all of the elements in those models. We've also continued to tie specific district priorities in operations, so our staffing, our capital projects, our technology projects, things that are critical to be addressed. and align those with our revenues and the expenses associated with them. In this regard, we developed an updated 5-year projection with a budget surplus this year of $4.1 million for FY23. With that $4 million in surplus, we will see an increase from our fund balance from currently 10% to about 12.6%. So that's kind of the, like I said, we're looking to get that fund balance up to 20%, and we'll be at about 12.6 at the end of this year. And then finally, just working with PMA to develop a little bit more formal cash flow reporting process. We're actually doing that this month to see about, as we prepare for tax anticipation warrants in January, making sure that we've really dialed in our cash flow when we receive our revenue and when those expenditures are expected, so we can limit both the amount of money and the length of time that we borrow our tax anticipation warrants. So in terms of fund balance, our next goal, away from just exploring those budgeting practices and alignment of our educational needs, our goal for the fund balance for this year is to provide training and professional development for central office staff and administrators on budget implications and considerations based on those projections. I don't think people really realize how important that 20% fund balance is to the district. So we're expanding the utilization of Forecast 5. They have other modules that we can use that can show district comparisons, our district compared to our comparable districts or the state of Illinois, in terms of reporting some of the revenue and expenditure scenarios that we have, and linking that to if we had a fund balance or a higher percentage of a fund balance. We also are reviewing district priorities, and as I said earlier, we're looking at looking for opportunities to see if there are some zero-based budgeting areas, and then continuing to follow 5-year projections to maintain budget surplus to build those fund balances. The only way that we can build the fund balance is to take in more revenue than we spend every year, and so having that surplus budget is critical to building that fund balance. And then utilizing our community advisory committee members to, again, better understand and educate about our financial position. I think we've made some really good headway there. Now it's a matter of providing them some fast facts and some one-page resources that can kind of help them focus on the portions of the conversations that they may need while they're working with different community members out there. And our last goal is private and grant funding indicators. So the goal for 21-22 was just to network and educate local community leaders about our financial position and our needs. And at that point, our indicators of success were to identify educational priorities for grant and private funding opportunities, to attempt to connect with the PTAs and PTOs and booster groups to share district priorities to find out if there were some ways they could contribute to our needs, and then to continue to participate in shared service groups. So the progress that we made there, we have identified educational priorities to guide grant and private funding. We were actually able to apply for a few grants early. We've been able to continue to participate in monthly shared services meetings with the Village of Oswego, the Oswego Library and the Park District. We have reviewed and renewed our intergovernmental agreement with those groups. We've also expanded our relationship with the City of Aurora, and I meet monthly with them on the different developments and priorities that are happening within the City of Aurora that impact our school district. And we've applied for ISBE construction maintenance grants, digital equity grants, and just recently Heather Kincaid applied for an emergency connect, we've also applied for emergency connective funding grant, so those three, and then Heather has taken the lead on the U.S. Department of Education school-based mental health services grant, which we'll find out if we qualify for at the end of the month. So the goal here changes from our network and educate local community leaders to actually identify and apply for appropriate private and grant funding opportunities. I'm excited about this. As I said, we've already applied for 4 new grants, as you saw on the last slide, and we're going to continue to identify and apply for ISBE and other grants, identify and expand the number of private grant-funded opportunities, educate and more actively participate in purchase cooperatives, Omni and Sourcewell, to help lower some of those expenditures, and then also reach out to some of our business and roundtable groups. A lot of the meetings that I attend with the shared services groups, they talk about connections they have with these business roundtables, and I think that's something that our business office will start to be a little bit more active in, to kind of get a little bit more exposure to other community groups that might have some funding resources as well. So that's kind of where we've been, where we are, and where we're going in terms of the Envision 308 plan. And I believe that, in my opinion, I believe that we're making progress, and we'll continue to monitor these goals as we move forward. So I know that's a lot of information, but just wondering if the board had any questions about the work that we're doing.
I have some questions.
Yeah, go ahead, Jennifer.
No, that's Lori.
This is actually Lori.
Lori, go ahead, Lori.
So can you refresh my memory? About this time last year, do you remember about where you had thought not you specifically, but where we as the district had thought that we would be at the end of 5 years? I think, if I understood correctly, you're saying that currently our projections show a fund balance of 10.5% at the end of 5 years. I believe it was significantly higher last year. Is that correct?
It was 10% last year. We were looking at, it was a little bit lower because we were only expected to have about a $2.6 million surplus. So it was about 11.5%, and we ended up coming out with a $4.1 million surplus. So we're at a 12.6. What you might be thinking about is at the end of 2026, based on our evidence-based funding projection models, we are only projected to be at about 17.6% at the end of 5 years. But that's if our evidence-based, conservative evidence-based assumptions stay the same. What we're hoping is that the state of Illinois will fund evidence-based funding to a higher degree. Last year, they funded it $300 million more, to which our school district ended up realizing, instead of the $4 million we were expecting, we realized $9 million. And this next year, there's talk about them funding it at about $500 million. So if the evidence-based funding model is funded a little bit more adequately, then we will see that 20% at the end of 5 years.
So, okay, thank you for that explanation. The question I'm asking, and the reason I'm asking is a little bit different, I think. So let me just explain a little bit why I'm asking. I'm seeing that some of the extra spending we're doing is closing the gap in these extra funds. So what I'm asking this question for is to see if my general understanding is that we're actually lowering the increase of fund balance. It's not that the fund balance is necessarily getting lower, but that the amount of the increase is lessening. Does that make sense? And is that an accurate representation?
I'd have to look into that one. I'm not exactly sure what numbers you're looking at to see the lower percentages.
Okay, yeah. So that is, yeah, if you could please, because my concern is that I'm hearing that, and then in the next section, I'm hearing that there's interest in expanding and purchasing more services to better understand our forecasts, which are lessening. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding that that's the recommendation that you have, is that we purchase more services to explore why our fund balance isn't. Is that accurate, that the purchase services are to help us understand why our fund balance isn't growing?
No, they're already modules that we own through Forecast 5. They're modules that we have. that we will be implementing. It's not an additional cost outside of the Forecast 5 model that we use. And when I said that we're looking at purchase services, what we're looking at doing is maybe consolidating, and we'll actually have a conversation about that later today with our vendors and contracts. We're going to be looking for opportunities to consolidate our purchasing and lower how much we're spending on some products and services so that we can realize a higher cost savings or realize a higher fund balance as a result of the savings from those services.
Okay, so let me just, thank you for that. That makes total sense. So I guess my final thought is it accurate for me to understand that the 5-year projections that had been given out maybe like fall of 21, right when we were beginning to see some of those ESSER funds, those projections had us up around the 50 million mark in 2025, 2026, after the 5 years from that point, correct? That's no longer the case. We're not looking at these $50 million surpluses in our forecast right now.
Yeah, I'd have to pull those up and find out, but they did change. Last year, my first year, I went on the assumptions of previous CFOs and data that was in there, and this year we fine-tuned it, and I feel more confident in the projections that are reflected in our current 5-year models.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that. That's what I want to make sure that we're stressing, especially to members of the community that are still learning how this all works, that these things do change pretty significantly year after year. I appreciate that. Thanks.
Yep. Thanks, Lori.
A couple of things that I just want to clarify. So you said the budget was $250 million, right? Is that correct? Approximately, yeah. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask for the last penny, but 80% of the budget is basically salary benefits. So, I mean, we're a service industry. I'm always fascinated and always interested when, having been up there and sat up there under the bright lights in the midst of cuts over 4 years. I'm always fascinated and interested when I hear about efficiencies, right? Because I've said this before, right? Like if we were really wanting to be efficient, right? If we really wanted to be efficient, we would look at the one thing in Illinois that makes us a unicorn. There's one thing in the state of Illinois that makes us a unicorn, right? It's not pensions. There's other states with pensions. It's not property taxes. Believe it or not, there's actually a state with higher property taxes than us. There are other states with higher property taxes. But there's one thing that makes the state of Illinois a unicorn, so I'll say it again. And that is, and it causes problems, by the way, with labor. And that is, the state of Illinois is the only state that has school districts that are unified, pre-K through 8. Hey, you know where I'm going with this, don't you, buddy? And also 9 through 12. That's what makes us a unicorn, and it causes issues and problems. And it's fine and dandy, and that's great to talk about, to go down the path of cuts, but if we really wanted to put our money where our mouth was, right, we would say, hey, why do we have, how many school districts are there? Is it 800 plus school districts, right, in the state of Illinois? But the problem is, it doesn't matter whether you're red or blue. As soon as you start talking about taking away my local school district, ooh, I get upset. I get mad. And there's your inefficiency. And so you can point the fingers at your neighbors all you want. But when you have, let's see, was it 2 school districts in Newark? Good old Norsemen, the Newark Norsemen. I remember them. I used to play them in basketball every year. And they have 2 superintendents, no offense, Dr. Sparlin, make more than you. And I'm pretty sure we could fit all of their students easily in one of our schools, right? There's your inefficiency. But good luck with that, because Newark loves their small gym and they love their school. I also believe we have no money in our maintenance fund. Is that correct?
Yep, that's true.
So if we were funding our maintenance fund I don't know, with anything, but let's say we were funding our maintenance fund properly, would we have a surplus?
No.
No, we would not have a surplus. No, we would not have a surplus. We would not have a surplus if we were, and that costs us money. And it's also interesting that when we point the finger at the neighbor or the kid down the street and we say, hey, we're going to make cuts, what's interesting is that's usually our most vulnerable students who pay the price. And so I'm interested. I'm always fascinated. I'm always interested when the people that, hey, you want to do this, you want to do that, but realize when you're under the bright lights and you're making those cuts and you ask those questions, and boy, you ask those questions, let me tell you, you really ask those questions because you want to know, because you don't want to hit your most vulnerable, let me tell you. There's no way around it. That's who ends up getting hurt. And when you say, hey, we're going to have to figure out how to do with or without and all that stuff, what usually happens is, we know, that usually means we're going to say, hey, teachers, TAs, show up with your own stuff and figure it out yourself. And that's not fun either. So $250 million, 80% of it goes towards the service part, because we're a service industry, with no money in our maintenance fund. And if we were actually funding that, we'd have a deficit budget. That costs us money, by the way, because we're not servicing our facilities properly. So things are going to go out quicker than they should. And I'm here to tell you, I was going to wait to talk about this, but I'll say it now. 6 legislators, Republican and Democrat, you're right. They said, hey, good news on EBF this year. You're probably looking at $500 million. That's great news. Probably $300 million the year after that. But we don't know what we're going to do the year after that because the state is looking at an $800 million deficit. And this district is dependent on EBF and a levy because we have how much in the maintenance fund? $0.
Thank
So
you.
have fun. You want to come up here with a cut list, have fun with that.
Dominic?
Jen, I have a question and a comment for Dr. Sparlin if I'm next.
Go ahead.
Dr. Sparlin, at the end of all of these Envision 308 presentations, there is a line or chart or whatever you want to call it, a bar that basically says where we're at. Who comes up with that we're making progress, we've attained it, we're holding, we're regressing? Where does that come from?
That would come from conversations at the cabinet level, but that's what that is, Ms. Johnson, is what we felt. But what we're asking there is what the board feels based on the goals for the year and the presentation and the information that's provided. Because ultimately, it's you who decides where that arrow falls on that continuum.
Okay, and this isn't really with regard for Dr. Pepke's presentation tonight, but in general, Dr. Sparlin, I'd really like to see you sit down with your presenters, your administration. You know, we continue to get these Envision 308 updates, and frankly, I just think I don't know it's the best use of our time. Finance doesn't just happen in December. Curriculum doesn't just happen in July, for example. And so just a suggestion, and maybe somebody else has another suggestion, or maybe the rest of the board is fine with this, but I would just really rather see one chart, and here's the highlights for finance, here's the highlights for curriculum, here's the highlights for something else. All of this lives on the website, and I just, to be read to is just, I don't feel is an efficient use of our time. We are in the business of education. I would like to see all of this driven towards our goals and our student outcomes, and the efficiencies that we're creating against those, and how we are actually economically efficient with our taxpayers' dollars. So I'd really like to see a different presentation of Envision 308. This is, we've all read this ahead of time. It's available for the community ahead of time. It lives on the website. So I'd really like to see this look different moving forward if other board members agree. And I believe that Mrs. Doyle and I have asked, at least for a while, if we can see our goals tied to finance and connect the dots for if we're using money efficiently. So I'd like to see that moving forward.
I agree with Jen, especially about the length of the presentation. This is all information that we do have available publicly and to ourselves. And I could piggyback off of her question to Dr. Sparlin and just ask, is there a rubric that's used to determine regression, holding steady, and making progress? And if not, is there some way to kind of more objectively evaluate that that we could get a better feel for?
Yeah, Mrs. Doyle, no, there's not a rubric. That is something that we could look into. This is what we presented when we created the strategic plan, and but as you know, that can we can always change at the for whatever the board would like to see.
I would definitely also like some sort of opportunity to ping our community members and the taxpayers to see how they feel about the progress that we're making. I think it will keep us more accountable and kind of hold the mirror up.
Are there any other questions from the presentation Dr. Petsky just gave? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to item 7.2.
Hold on, wait. Can I make a motion to move 8.4 up, since our student ambassadors have been sitting here for almost 2 hours and have a lot of AP tests tomorrow?
Second.
Yep,
Yeah.
we talked about that. Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So a couple.
We have to,
Oh,
we
we-
have to actually vote
Yep.
on it.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
We have to actually vote on it.
So someone seconded?
I did,
Yep.
yeah.
Oh,
right-
Second.
Right away.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Ms. Doyle?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Cerrone?
Yes.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Ms. Swanson?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
You're up, kid.
8.4, Student Ambassador Report.
Thank you. So a couple of weeks ago, some of our SSAC members were lucky enough to accompany our district members as panelists for the joint annual conference with the Illinois Association of School Boards. We learned a lot of things at the conference, but the first thing we noticed was the amazing number of district leaders across the state that were so committed to increasing student voice in their respective schools. We even talked to another student ambassador who was having some conflicts within her own school, doing student advocacy. She was trying to build her own committee. So being there and being able to speak with people who held similar and different titles than us, and had very different experiences with the concepts of student voice in their learning environments, shined light on the weight of being there and the weight of the responsibility that we were holding. So I think that was one of the biggest things that we realized going to that joint annual conference. At the conference itself, we discussed the importance of teacher-to-student communication, student-to-student representation, and administration-to-student connections, which is the biggest part of our job as student ambassadors specifically. As we work to bridge the gap between our students and our board, or even between the students themselves within school culture, which is something we're trying to work on this year, I hope that we were able to instill an ideology of unity between these building blocks of our learning environment among our audience, especially in a time where there's a lot of divisions between our community with differing ideas, which was mentioned earlier, between our students, between faculty. And I think I just kind of wanted to be there with our SSAC to represent how student voice is one of the pieces to kind of putting back together the puzzle of our community that's kind of fallen apart in the past couple of years. I think another thing that we talked about a lot was the importance of shining light on student voice, emotional correctness, two-way communication, and empathy. And empathy is especially important because we're representing not just our voice, but the voices of those whose backgrounds, experiences, and opportunities within SD308 vary so greatly from ours, as do their needs and concerns in ways that we may not experience, but we desire to understand and represent here in these meetings and within our committee meetings as well. We're thankful for the opportunity to have attended the conference, to share our experiences, and to listen to the experiences of so many other people who share our goals of amplifying student voice in Illinois districts and across the nation as well.
So adding on to what Anya said, the III conference was an incredible opportunity to share our voice and our experiences and represent not only ourselves, but an incredible diverse student body that our district has. So now on to our committee. On the 22nd, our application for the SAC closed, and we want to congratulate everyone who applied. There was a huge number of candidates who were very diverse and had a strong range of perspectives that were useful in many ways. Then we had interviews that took place on November 30th, and we're pretty certain on the finalities of the candidates who we're going to select. All of the applicants, however, brought a really good perspective, and that really showed us that there is a desire to amplify student voice in our district, and it really showed that students do want to have their voices heard. It was really difficult to narrow who we want down on our committee, but we know that the people, regardless of if they make it or not, that they will use their voices in order to help everyone in our district, not only themselves. We really look forward to meeting everyone who joins our, all the new members, and we want to use their perspectives along with the perspectives we already have to address the various facets of mental health and their sub-issues in the coming months.
Very good.
Yeah, that's. Thank you. Yeah.
So we got so much great feedback from the conference, from the organizers of the exceptional job that you all did, and they wondered, do you realize what you've done, like where you've placed not just yourself, but the district as well as all students in the state of Illinois and beyond? They said that you all are ready and prepared to get a job tomorrow. And you did us so proud. You did us so proud. And we're just elated and look forward to more invitations. And we had one of the students who came was a graduate. She's at DePaul University, and she came and she was a part of the panel as well, and so much great feedback on how she was able to take the experience that she had here and how she's applying it to her schooling and her environments and college is such a key to how we're developing you as leaders. And so you're doing such a great job, and I just wanted to say thank you for everything.
Thank you.
You did great.
You all,
I'm
if
super
need to
proud of
get
you.
going, you are welcome. Be dismissed.
And now you can sneak out and take your AP
Yeah,
test.
you can sneak out if you want to. Don't forget to take some goodies in the back.
All right, moving on to item 7.2 was a presentation on dual and articulated credit that was requested earlier in the year. Tonight we have Mr. Dan Artson, Executive Director of High School Instruction and K-12 Assessments, to present. Welcome, Mr. Artson. Good.
As you can see by the title of the presentation, as Dr. Sparrow had mentioned, that the request was for a presentation on articulated credit and dual credit. I wanted to expand that just a bit with advanced placement credit, because you can see these are three different approaches we have that earning college credit through SD308 coursework. So I'm going to give a brief presentation on each one of these. The first one with articulated credit, and as you guys have already reviewed the slides, I'm sure, this is really college credit for courses taken at high school level. And these are courses primarily taught by our high school teachers, and the curriculum is really determined through the curriculum is really determined through, in coordination with Valleys. And Valleys works between the high school and colleges, or local colleges and universities, to ensure that our curriculum and professional development needs are met, so that way articulated credit can be verified at the next level.
There you go.
Did it go? All right, there we go. You might ask, how is college credit earned or documented on the student transcript? It's a little bit different than the others. With articulated credit, students must apply for this to be granted at the next level, specifically at Waubonsee Community College. Students must earn a B or higher in these courses, and it will appear as an E or equivalency credit on the Waubonsee Community College transcript. You see there at the bottom where the transferability between Waubonsee Community College and other four-year institutions is really dependent on where the student applies afterwards. And that really falls on the student to make sure that that credit's going to be applied for that following Waubonsee Community College. A couple of notes there that you must apply for this within 2 years of graduation of high school, and then from there, Waubonsee requires a student to actually complete a Waubonsee Community College course before the equivalency credit is granted on the transcript. There is a little bit of a loophole for this too, which I can explain later after we go through some dual credit courses. This slide here just provides detail, and the hyperlink is directly to a page of our course catalog, and it lays out all the available options for students to have articulated credit through SD308. Dual credit's the next option. Dual credit college courses that are taken by high school juniors and seniors. Students are really enrolled both in high school and college at this point. Courses can be from all departments, which is different than articulated credit. Articulated credit primarily focuses on CTE courses. This can come from any department in our course catalog. The curriculum is determined by the college or higher institution, and we must follow that, whether that be textbooks, any other related material. It must be followed in order to receive a dual credit. Also mentioned on there, who teaches a dual credit course. These can be college level instructors, or it can be high school instructors with their proper credentialing. And then again, as stated before, credit is earned at both the college and high school level, and it's reflected both on the high school transcript and college transcript. And what's nice about this is successful completion of the course, as you see up there, this will basically transfer to any college or university in the state of Illinois. This has kind of gone back and forth over the last couple of years. I was actually at a conference on Friday that discussed this, and this is the current practice, and hopefully this stays this way. But this has kind of gone back and forth over some years, but this is the current practice. And again, I provided the link here with to the course catalog of the 15 courses of dual credit offered in SD308. The final one we're going to discuss tonight, advanced placement and AP courses, is run through College Board. High school teachers can instruct this. They do AP workshops that basically provide professional development to ensure that the course is being taught in the manner in which College Board requires. And then the curriculum is determined through AP in College Board and is reviewed on an annual basis. How college credit is earned through AP courses. So AP courses, a student can take an AP course and not earn college credit. There's a couple of ways that happens. One, they can choose not to take the test, the AP exam, which we obviously encourage students to take the AP exam. And they also have to score a 3 or higher on that exam in order for it to count toward college credit. And you can see up here that the transcript itself only reflects the course taken. So if it was an AP European history, for example, it would only reflect AP European history in the grade. It doesn't reflect the actual score they received on the test. That goes through College Board. And then again, here's a snapshot of the 36 courses that we have here through AP in our course catalog. And then the final slide here gives a breakdown of the financial cost to our students from articulated credit through dual credit and advanced placement courses. And pending any questions you have, I will.
Yeah, do we know what our course load for dual credit compared to neighboring districts that are not outside of Waubonsee Community College? So I mean, like in this case, no offense, but I don't care what 204's offering is because I know they're working through COD. So I'm just curious what our offerings are compared to other districts inside Waubonsee. Do we know where, like, are we pretty much offering the same thing that everybody else is in Waubonsee? Do we have more? Do we have less? Do we not know?
Yeah, and great question, and I have some data, like you said, from 204 and things like that, and if you're not interested in hearing that, that's fine. You know, there's a lot.
I mean, that's fine, but
Sure.
I mean, if you have that, that's great in addition, but
Sure.
I know that we're dealing with Waubonsee, so.
Sure. You know, I think for the most part, and having not reviewed each and every course catalog offering in the area, for the most part, we fall in line pretty well. Saying that, you have to remember, like Yorkville, which feeds into Waubonsee as well. Yorkville has IVIC that they also send students to as well.
Correct.
Which is a huge feather in their cap to have that capability.
Correct.
Right? If you're talking about Plainfield, Plainfield numbers look better than ours on paper because they offer 25 dual credit courses. But saying that, most of those courses are at Wilco, right? So which is, again, something that they can offer that we don't have that capability right now, or which would be nice to have something like that. But when it comes to just offering the courses within our own kind of purview, we fall very much in line with the others. Having 15 to 16 is kind of common throughout the area.
Can I jump into one district that I know personally?
Sure.
Here's the big difference. When you pull up the dual credit offerings here, and this has been the bane of my existence since 20 whatever when we started to try to get this, is, for instance, if you look at our bio, West Aurora has a dual credit bio. They also have an AP bio. That's not how we run it.
Sure.
We run it as AP. So AP courses are your top 10% kids. Dual credit is for kids who are trying a college class, want to get the science credit, need a C or better to get the credit. So you can get 4 credits right now at West Aurora for the intro to bio, 4 more for the human biology, but that's not how we're running it in this district, which has been an issue for years. We're running it as AP bio.
Sure.
And then how are the kids getting their credit?
So that's my question here is, and that's where I was going with this.
It's not comparable.
So that's my question. That's where I was going with this. Is this because of priorities that have been set in the past where we have been saying, hey, we're all on board, as you allude to AP, and this is what we want to stress? Is that why we're where we're at? Or is it because we just haven't, I'm not trying to blame anyone, okay? But for whatever reason, Waubonsee and Oswego, Community Unit District 308 just haven't been in sync and haven't been able to maybe maximize to the best of the ability.
Well, let me offer.
Or is it both?
Let me offer a little different take here. So
yeah, sure.
AP courses do not require any special credentialing to teach that.
100%.
Dual credit requires that.
Absolutely.
Requires a master's degree in content.
Correct.
It does not.
So
not in all areas. In some places, it's just
In
18
biology,
hours.
right.
Fine,
So,
that's one. Yes,
actually,
correct.
I can read for you exactly what that does, because I have prepared this. It is a qualified master's degree or any master's degree with 18 graduate credits toward that desired discipline. So there's a listing of, you can have any master's degree, but then you have to have very specified courses.
Correct.
So in West Aurora, for example, I don't know the instructor for that course.
We have 3 that are qualified to teach that course.
And they're qualified to teach the course. And I'm absolutely happy to look into what qualifications we have for our instructors to do so. I would love to run a dual credit biology course. I would love it. I don't know if we have anyone right now that has those credentials to teach that here. AP biology, I don't have to have someone with those specified credentials.
Right.
Right, but this is way before your time.
Yep.
I mean, we're talking going back to 2013. This is way before your time, right? This was when we first brought it online in West Aurora. We tried to bring it here, and there was just a myriad of why we can't instead of how do we get it done. And now with everything else that's going on, we're still, what I don't want to see continue, because I'm out of here in 3 months. I got 10 more meetings. But what I don't want to see is us continue down this path of let's force a kid into AP that really, I just want to know if I'm ready for college. I really just want to take a course. Like, I find it so hard to believe that West Aurora can run so many dual credit classes and we can't.
So that's why I'm trying to figure out, right? Is it really because we don't have the staff that has the masters plus the 18, or and because I'm curious, because like for instance, I know in the district I teach in, and you know this, very generous when it comes to, hey, we want you to continue your education, right? So I don't know, is your district very generous when it comes to that? Because then perhaps we might be talking about something else, and then that comes back to budget. But, or I don't know, is that really an issue here? Or is it, again, is there some kind of miscommunication where we're not, we could be maximizing this and we're not? That's what I'm trying to get at here, because I agree with you and I'm just as frustrated. But what I want to know is what is the hindrance?
Yeah, I mean, and to the point of everyone here, as stated, I wasn't here in 2013 for this.
No worries.
But moving forward, I can assure you that this is something that is a priority for me as well. And I think even talking to our HSCC today, which is our High School Curriculum Council, about this, having the understanding that we need to develop more courses for students to take as a dual credit option. Having the conference that I was at on Friday at Glenbard South High School from the Chicagoland area brought various groups in with that too to discuss it. And we're not alone in the barriers of offering dual credit to some capacity because of the credentialing necessary. There are other districts that have gone through and said, okay, to incentivize this, we've paid for them to have their master's degree or 18 credit hours in the specific area that was needed, but then they signed a contract of 5 years to stay with the district, and right? Those were discussed at the conference the other day too. It's not an SD308 issue necessarily. It does have to do with broadening our focus maybe, but at the same time having that capability to offer those classes here.
And that's an important piece, because the thing is, once those teachers, because that goes back to my piece where I said you have 3 different types of districts, right? You've got your elementary, your high school, and your unified districts. And we have to be aware that once we have these teachers who have the ability to teach these dual credit classes, they can go to, and we get poached, I'm sure, we get poached of these teachers to go to these high school districts, which are more lucrative because those are the districts that pay higher. So that's an important piece, that how are we going to keep them? It's not going to be free. That's also going to cost money. I don't know how else to tell people that. I don't know what to tell you. And the high school districts pay more money. I mean, look it up.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead, Eugene.
So just please excuse my ignorance, but you're presenting what we would like to offer or what we currently offer. That's question number 1.
This is what we currently offer.
That's what I thought. So question number 2 is, do you have statistics that list the demographic of students, percentage and demographic of students who are currently enrolled in each of the programs?
I do not at this time, but I would absolutely be happy to do that, yes.
All right, perfect. And then with that, I guess I'm thinking about the process for enrolling students in each of these areas. Because once I see the demographics, my next question is going to be, how do students elect and or are recommended to get involved? And so that's the next question. So whenever we get that information, I would say just include those processes as well.
Sure, and I can appreciate that. And while it's not the data you're looking for, I can offer you some dual credit enrollments overall from the past few years, and I'll just give a brief overshot. Going back to 2019, 2020, for Oswego East, we had 488 dual credit enrollments. That number has increased by 100 this school year to 587. OHS from 1920 had 474 enrollments, and that's an 80 mark enrollment to 567 this school year. So we are making gains in this for dual credit enrollments.
But to your point, yes, I can look at demographics of these enrollments and then how we're going about offering these courses to students. Largely, these are conversations with counselors and things like that too, but we can absolutely offer that in greater capacity, just a awareness campaign, if nothing else.
So, go ahead, Eugene.
No, he was
done. So, all right, so way back in the day, I don't know, when did Alan graduate? 2014, maybe? 20-something. Project Lead the Way, you used to be able to get credit for.
Yep.
So I didn't see that on your list here anywhere. I know if you scored so high on the end exam, you could apply, and he got like Iowa something credit from some college. Iowa State? Yeah.
Yeah. I'll have to look into that. To be honest with you, I just followed the course catalog right now as it stated.
Yeah.
I'll look into Project Lead the Way and specifically put that online. Some of these are naturally a part of that, and that might be encompassing in some of those numbers, but I can give you specifics on PLTW.
Yeah. I think that's one we don't push, but we should, because Project Lead the Way is growing,
Sure.
right? I mean, because STEM is growing, but I think I knew about it because I knew about it in our district. I don't think that our school district necessarily was pushing that if you got this certain score on the test, you actually got 3 college credits
Okay.
for the class. So that might be something to look into too,
Sure.
because I imagine it's the same guy teaching it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to 8.1, Superintendent Report.
Well, good evening, Board. November 16th, we had our second meeting of the Community Advisory Committee. We began the meeting with a review of what we talked about from the previous meeting with a little 308 history. Then we we answered questions that the committee had from the first meeting. Dr. Petsky covered the levy and shared our 5-year projections, and Mrs. Dahlquist presented on what we're doing to improve academic achievement. And then we shared a draft mission statement with the committee and did a multi-group activity to gain feedback from that committee on the draft mission statement. And we'll be doing the same activity with the Student Advisory Committee, so in hopes of landing on a final mission statement that we can bring back to the board for approval in next month. At our last meeting, the question of outsourcing certain positions, such as our teaching assistants, was brought up. And I do want the board to know that we are working on creating a document that outlines the positions that we're currently outsourcing, what we're paying for those services. We're also looking at districts in the surrounding area, what they pay for the same positions, and what vacancies that they have and for what they're paying. And we will provide an informational report on January 23rd for the board. Tonight is our last meeting of 2022. I would like to wish the board and anyone viewing from home a happy holiday season as we enter the last few weeks of the first semester. And with that said, and thinking about the holiday season coming up, our district is fortunate to have local programs that are helping our students and families in need. And many of these programs rely heavily on the involvement of donations from our SD308 community to help them fulfill the needs of the local families. So I've been told that there are numerous children and families left needing sponsors this year. So I want to highlight a couple of ways people can help. Community Cares, that's a program that helps bring cheer to local families, and you can have the opportunity to sign up to sponsor a family or consider volunteering your time on December 17th to help sorting gifts or making deliveries. And then Toys for Tots, now through December 9th at all of our 5 308 junior highs. We're collecting toys, are donated for Toys for Tots, sponsored by the Marine Corps and the Oswego Fire Department, and you can donate any unwrapped toy for a child for ages 1 through 13. That's a cost of $10 or more, and any of our junior highs between now and then. So that is my report for this evening, so thank you, Mrs. Hamilton.
Thank you very much. 8.2, Board Member Comments. Do you have any board member comments tonight?
You want me, IASB? All right, I'll make them quick. A lot of these I've already talked about, but 6 legislators from IASB, I'll talk about 3 highlights. So sat in, listened to about 6 legislators from 2 different parties talk about what the financial shape of the state looks like as far as education is concerned. And they said that EBF was probably going to be funded this year, even perhaps 500, up to 500 million. I'll remind people that to fund it properly, it really needed 740 million a year. So it's still not going to get what it needs fully funded. It probably will get the minimum next year, but again, if you're looking 3 years out, you're looking at a deficit. The state's looking at an $800 million deficit at that point. So keep that in mind when it comes to our district. I sat in on 204's Portrait of a Graduate. District I teach in, they did something similar called Portrait of a Learner. It was very fascinating and interesting. The district, our neighboring district, deals with a great deal of misinformation that is piped out there. And it was a great opportunity to bring students and also many community leaders from a very large district together. And it was an opportunity, a great opportunity for them to bring people together to make sure that they could weather through some very difficult things, such as redrawing lines, which is always difficult in 204 when that happens, and help them when it came to dealing with misinformation, when it came to such topics such as that. So it's a great opportunity. However, again, I go back to our budget. It's probably something we can't afford, but they were very interested in our student ambassador piece, and I think there's an opportunity there because that's something they want to pursue. Great having a district next door that's also doing that, and I think that's a learning opportunity and a nice exchange there. I sat in about making meetings matter. I'll be brutally honest with you. Hands down, we pretty much have the longest meetings of anyone, without question. I'm someone who doesn't want to diminish discussion. I know each of us is passionate about all these topics, which I think is good. One huge suggestion that I came out of there, because I'll be honest with you, I didn't like the idea of diminishing questions or diminishing discussions. But one huge suggestion was, again, to send questions we have early so as to move the meeting along. I mean, we've all had the same board trainings. We should all be opening those packets as soon as possible so that we're here and we have those questions. It doesn't mean questions don't come up as we're having good discussions. I get that they do. They're going to, and that's great also. But I really think having those questions ahead of time helps the meeting go quicker. Maybe that's something we could start with. If we are all doing that, that's great, awesome. But if we're not, that's definitely a suggestion that would help move the meeting along. Those are my three.
Thank you.
I have a few comments if I can go next.
Yes, go ahead, Jen.
I just wanted to reiterate what was already said in the room because I think it is worth saying. I'm so incredibly proud of the presentation that was made by our student board members, both current and former. They eloquently amplified their voice and showed how student voice creates a high degree of agency for students by students. Someone in each of the 4 sessions that I participated in after the 308 session all mentioned the presentation that was given by our student leaders. I thought it was so incredibly impressive. I believe that the failure to include student voice is one of the reasons that public education remains stagnant. So I'm proud that we're leading the way. Including student voice holds educators, administrators, and board members accountable while ensuring a learner-centered education system, not a school-centered education system. And creating this democratic space in our district for students leads to authentic inclusivity of all students. But let's not stop here. I want to challenge our administrative leaders and our educators to seek ways to engage students in meaningful decision-making from the classroom to our boardroom. I also just want to say that there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that I don't think a lot of our community members see that the board is also working on. I want to ensure our taxpayers, our community constituencies, that many of the board members have been digging into the finances of our district, digging into contracts, relationships with vendors, why we have some relationships with vendors without contracts, when they were initiated, when they've been renewed, when they are up for renewal, and when they are being auto-renewed. We are asking why, we're asking how they're being vetted, and we are questioning every step along the way. We are definitely working to make this information more available to all taxpayers and the board so that we can make better informed and responsible financial decisions that are directly tied to board goals and student outcomes. And I think sometimes people don't realize that that is going on behind the scenes, but we have definitely been doing that at least since I've been on the board. That's all that I wanted to share this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other board comments at this time? All right, moving on to 8.3, board committee reports. We'll start with the equity committee.
I'll take it, and then if you have something to add. Sure. So we had an equity committee meeting on December 1st. We discussed the equity journey, which is, how do you describe that? That's a new feature on the Illinois State Report Card. Yep. Okay. And kind of what's important, dig more into the numbers, look at our numbers. What we noticed was large gaps in readiness going into kindergarten first. That's gaps between, with children with low income, special needs, people of color, and English learners. We need to, one of the things that we need to concentrate on is getting these children interventions early. And in order to do that, we need interventionists. And we need better practice, or not better practices, but training on MTSS Tier 1 and Tier 2 practices. Students need access. One of the other things that we need to work on is access to AP and honors classes. There's a gap in participation in those classes.
By whom? What do you mean? By whom?
By whom?
Yeah, which groups aren't participating?
Sure. I think I'll throw a helpline here. So when we look at the opportunity gap, we do have a higher percentage of our white and Asian students taking more advanced classes than students from demographic groups such as Hispanic or Black. We also see that our low-income students are not accessing those classes as high level. So we talked about what needs to happen at elementary and junior high, especially in classes around math and science. That's where we see lower levels and more of an opportunity gap there. So looking at what we're doing with math vocabulary, looking at what we're doing with math instruction, but also making sure that we are pushing our students of color and our low income and even our English learners as they get their English up to where they should be, having access to math and science classes. And that's where one of the areas that we see the biggest opportunity gap.
Okay, thank you.
You guys just confirm they confirm my position or what I was hoping when I was asking Dan the question. So, so if things are being done, that's great, but I think I would want to just stay updated on where we are so that it's not episodic, but it's cultural, the things that we're doing to ensure that we have equity across the board and systemically.
Yeah, thank you for that, because I was also thinking about your question, Eugene, also about how are the students, how do they get to participate in the process? That's something that I'd like an answer to.
And Dr. Arson said something about, counselor referral or counselor, I don't know how the counselors, the role that they play in it, but again, just the process of it, I think that is something that we just have to look at overall to ensure that, the access is equitable across the board.
Thank you.
There's certainly lots of work to be done. One of the next topic that we discussed was the suspensions and student discipline and the disparities in that, and how academic performance and how you feel in your belongings, your academic performance actually makes you feel more welcome. So a lot of the behavior issues that we're seeing is primarily driven by a lack of academic performance, and so we need to make sure that we're addressing those issues early. There's a disparity with children with IEPs versus not. We talked about how it's hard to empathize when there's disabilities that you can't see, as well as those that you can. Low income, again, success matters to behavior, so there's a disparity between children with low income and the rest of the population. There was a huge disparity with black males with suspensions. And so practices, we need to look into de-escalation, diversity, better overall education and early, provide support to help kids with their behavior moving forward. So once they're, they had a suspension, that we help them and we target them to get better supports. So.
The only thing I'll add is I know that, correct me if I'm wrong, the report card's moving more towards a college and career readiness kind of reporting kind of indicators and so forth, and that's what it'll reflect. And would like to see, again, going back to this conversation about dual credit classes and kind of seeing some of those numbers and seeing if maybe those options, because I do agree with Ally. I think that sometimes, AP gets pushed, and it would be nice to see some of those dual credit options expanded.
Okay, and now policy,
Dominic.
Sorry, go ahead.
One question for Dominic. You mentioned there was disparities in regards to black males, and was there any discussion in regards to root cause? Is there any, assessments being done to identify root cause as opposed to simply just identifying it?
Yes, we talked at the meeting. There is, of course, more work to be done, but one of the things that we've identified is we have some students that don't feel that they have a trusted adult or a person that they identify with at school. Part of that is to increase hiring of diverse staff, so that they see themselves represented more often in our staff, but also the work that we're doing for and with staff on identifying our own bias and looking at our own learning styles versus learning about other learning styles, so that when our climate for learning, when we're talking about differentiating instruction and amplifying student voice, it's not the aggregate of student voice, it's knowing our impact on each of the students that are in the classroom and in our school district, and knowing more and getting their voice about what matters to them out of the learning environment. It's our belief that by amplifying student voice, then you really know your impact, and that's what causes change within a system. It's important to get in and look at data, but until you know the stories of the human beings that are walking through the doors, we cannot best identify our instructional practices or make relationships with those students. I know we say it all the time, but if students don't feel loved when they come in, or they don't feel like they've been connected to the best instructional practices in the world, aren't going to be as impactful.
I won't give my presentation now, but I sat in at the III conference. I sat in on Joliet District 86, where they talked about their educational equity. It was phenomenal, and just some of the things, the practices that they're putting in place, but I'll give an update later.
Okay. Ally?
I just, like, I hate to compare districts, but do we have any kind of mentoring program right now? Like Boys to Men or anything set up through?
There are different schools that have watchdog types of things where parent dads are coming in and working with students or building relationships, especially at our elementary schools, where we don't have many male staff members and teachers, so they're providing those types of role models. So there are those things.
That'd be a fun project for Dr. Waller.
For sure.
What are the names of the two programs at the high schools for mentoring? Each high school has a mentoring program.
From outside.
With inside, doesn't matter if it's inside or
Well, I think
inside
she's
or outside.
asking about community members for
Yeah, I
mentoring.
mean, like, we used Boys to Men for a long time. They just, like, they come in during the school day when the kids are in the building. Like, honestly, at the end of the day, you have to get kids when you have them. And like I have said that 100,000 times, once they leave your door, they're gone. Like, when you have them, you have to connect. I just think some kind of mentoring program would be something to look into. There are some that exist if we don't want to start our own.
For sure. All right, Policy and Legislative Committee report. Anything?
Oh, so much.
Oh, goodness. Can you?
I'm going to abbreviate.
There you go.
We had a really long meeting, and it was a lot of stuff. It was, oh my God, what was his name? I want to say Andrew. Nate? Nick. That's what it was. So the guy from this new
Press Plus?
Yeah, so many questions about almost.
Plus.
We went through. I don't even know how many questions. Do you? 100?
Oh,
maybe more. Just over all the sections of policy and just questions about whether we do this and whether we don't do that and whether we plan on doing this and whether we plan on not doing that. And at the end of the day, they have lots of stuff to look at. That we're like, oh, we should check that out. We haven't looked at that for a long, long time. Yeah, so it'll be fun. It'll be
All this work that we keep saying we're putting on you. Is that what's happening?
I think the meeting, yeah, I mean, like, it was, this for that person, this for that person. She's got a long list of questions in her little book that she keeps, that we could be here all night going over that meeting. But at the end of the day, there'll be a lot of things coming forward to the board and a lot of things that maybe we should take a look at in our own policies that, we didn't change anything. We just kind of, asked some questions about what was best practice and, argued over, we wanted lower amounts for money and they wanted higher. And Jen, anything to add?
I just want to really point out and thank Dr. Kincaid and Ursula. They are really taking the onus of this project on over the next year. It's going to be overwhelming, but the end goal and the end product will be pretty amazing. So I want to thank the both of them, and I want to thank the board for approving this because I think it's going to be a game changer. But great job, Allie.
Oh, I didn't do much.
All
That's how
right.
Ursula's a wordsmith. I don't know if you knew this about her, but she's
For sure.
yeah.
Thank you. Very good. Okay, now we go on to 9.1, the consent agenda.
Oh, you know what?
Oh, did I miss something?
Did I have was there a teaching and learning? I had one on the 15th. Is there?
I don't think.
Okay, maybe
What's
we
the
had a
other-
meeting since
What's the
then.
other committee that hasn't met yet?
Okay.
Finance. Right?
Oh, they canceled. Their meeting was canceled. Okay. All right, 9.1, consent agenda. Are there any questions on the consent agenda? Okay, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
Make a motion to approve. Oh,
Oh, go
Go
ahead,
ahead,
Jen.
Jen. Yep, if you want. Yeah.
Jared, please.
Oh,
They asked me to. Sorry, I didn't know. Go ahead.
I make a motion to approve all items under consent, including 9.1, minutes from the Board of Education meeting on November 14th, 2022, open and closed session, and 9.2 to acknowledge the FOIA request received by the district.
Second.
Ms. Doyle?
Aye.
Ms. Swanson?
Aye.
Mr. Saron?
Aye.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood? Miss Miss Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Item 10.1 is information on financial statements. Does the board have any questions on what has been provided?
Right, and if I could, I'll just intervene here and say that I know that board member Jennifer Johnson has been asking about a variance report. So this, to help accommodate this month, what I put in the financial statements was our actual financial statement for the FY22 school year in November. And I also included the FY22, or I'm sorry, the FY21 financial statement from last year. So that way board members can take a look at where we were this time last year. Just some insights that I said for board member Johnson that I would present our revenue. At this time in November last year, we were at 44% at recognizing our revenues, and this year we're at 46%, so we're right on target with our revenues. And last year, our expenditures at this point were 27% of what was budgeted, versus this year, currently we're at 17.3% budgeted. I think a lot of the information that the board members are interested in with the variance reports really is a mixture of what's presented on these financial reports, and then in the next month when we alternate, what is happening on the bills for payment, and how do those relate to the financial statements. And I think the big connection piece there is what we're doing with our contracts and vendors that I'll talk about later this evening. So if there was any other questions.
Thank you so much.
Jennifer, yeah, I was going to say, I know you and I will probably have some other conversations about what you see there, but it'll just make the board a little bit more informed as well based on our conversations.
Exactly, and why, if we're spending $10 million more this time this year, or this time than we did last year, why are we doing that? And also to help people understand how, where dollars fall and in a specific month in a year, and why we have to budget the way we do. So I appreciate this. Thank you.
All right, item 10.2 is a continued discussion on vendor and contracts and the work that's been done since our last conversation. Dr. Pesky?
Yeah, thank you. Board member Gatewood and I met to talk about this after our last conversation with the board, and he really helped to put it in perspective. And so what we presented for the board, we actually separated the two documents out. Rather than mixing all of the vendors and contracts together, we separated out one page that has just the contracts that were in excess of $20,000. And what I wanted the board members to realize here when board member Gatewood and myself spoke is there's definitely an identified process through board policy on what we do with the contracts. So anything that's over $25,000, and based on the updated policy now, anything over $20,000 goes through a request for proposal process where we request bids to ensure that we're getting the best financial representation and the best contract for the services or equipment and things that we're looking for. And then when a contract ends, the district then once again releases a request for proposal and solicits bids. The only exception to that is the technology goods and services. But what we make a point of doing, as you see with the cybersecurity contract, is why we don't have an official RFP. We still require large purchases to go through at least a several vendor review and process to make sure that we're balancing quality, cost, and with technology compatibility. So with that done, there's definitely a process for the contracts. And we've updated the contract list to show you the names of the contracts, the departments who are overseeing those contracts, the start and end dates, and the amount of those contracts. So with that said, what Board Member Gatewood and myself did then is we took the remaining vendors, and the vendors, what we've listed for you there represents any company that we've paid more than $20,000 with. And that doesn't necessarily mean we've paid one lump sum of $20,000. It could be we've paid 5 times throughout the year, you know, $4,000 a time. And now that we've reached that $20,000 mark, what we hear the board asking for is putting a process like we do with contracts on the expenditures that could cumulatively total $20,000 or more. So the finance department, the business office is monitoring our vendors, and vendors where we are reaching that $20,000 limit, we'll be asking ourselves, wait, what kind of purchasing are we doing through these vendors? Can we leverage kind of an efficiency of scale or the volume of our purchasing to get better purchase prices? Or another question is, should we enter into a contractual arrangement to get these goods or services and actually go through an RFP process? Or the third one is just consider consolidating our purchasing power to make sure that we're, and perhaps even limiting the vendors that we're going with if there is a difference in the cost between the vendors. So we've presented that for the board tonight. I think it's a very interesting way to take a look at some of the purchasing, in addition to our bills of payment, our financial reports. I think this adds another element of discretion that the board can look at to help make financial decisions as we move forward. So with that, I present to you our 2 artifacts and open up for any questions or comments that the board might have about vendors or contracts.
So my one question's on page 3. I look at Amazon at 304.
Are you on the contracts or the vendors?
I'm looking at the vendor contracts, 20,000. It just says Amazon.com, 304,931 supplies.
Yeah, and that's where we can take a look at that, at those amounts. What are we buying from Amazon? Is it office chairs? Is it pencils? Is it paper? Is it, you know, some of these have large, you know, they've got a variety of things. We do have a agreement with Amazon, a purchasing agreement, educational purchasing agreement to get reduced prices. So that's something we can maintain and take a look at, is now dig a little deeper. What are we buying through Amazon?
Right, but so forgive me, and you say that, but then I look at the bills for payment and I see different prices per month for paper. And it's all Amazon, but this month they charge this, and the next month they charge this, and sometimes we bought this much, and sometimes we bought that much. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's what.
I thought the same thing, Allie.
Yeah, and when we talked about that last month, that's one thing we'll specifically be taking a look at is who through Amazon are they getting their paper from, and are we paying that $36 to $41 per case of paper, or are they paying $47 for a case of paper? As long as they're within that window of spending, you know, $36 and $41 per case, then
I liken it to my kids who get a hold of my credit card because they need it for something, and they go to the mall, and instead of spending the $50, they spend $300, right? Like, it's easy to spend other people's money. Do you know what I mean? So like when I look at this, I cringe. And we are, for the most part, I think that when teachers buy supplies for their classroom, they're very cost effective. Like they look for the sales and they look for and I don't know that we do that on a big scale. I think we need paper and we just order it, and whenever we order it, we order it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think there's some small tweaks that we could make in a big system that would make a big difference.
Yeah, and I think this gives us the granularity to take a look at what some of those purchases are and what we should be monitoring. So we'll be breaking that down further.
And are the teachers or department chairs or whoever's responsible for procuring this stuff, do they have a budget to work within? Like, are they assessing from their educators?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Glad you brought that up, Jennifer. That's where I talk about we've identified a budget manager process, and now we're implementing that budget manager process as we do our budgeting. They're not spending money on things that they didn't plan for. When we set up their budgets, it's for the supplies, the materials, the contracts. It's things that are identified that they need to be purchasing. To the point that the board's asking, are we getting the best deal on the identified budgeted items that we're purchasing? We're not, for instance, a building might have a paper budget or a supply budget for paper for $3,000, but they buy 8 times a year. That's because they're limited in the amount of storage space they have for the paper, so they only buy like 5 boxes of paper at a time. So they've got it budgeted, and the big thing that we're going to look out for is, can we get a better deal on paper by ordering more, or are they getting a guaranteed price? It doesn't matter if they buy 1,000 boxes or 8 boxes; they're paying $36 a box.
And I caution you on one thing, and this is very specific, but you can't, not you specifically, Dr. Pesky, but no one can tell me in a district this size with the amount of land and buildings we have that we don't have enough room to store paper. So we should be buying it in bulk. And from what I understood is I heard that it's just that nobody wanted to have to manage that process. So I just want to make sure we're digging into why, because I definitely think that people are making good decisions, but I think we could be making better decisions and forecasting and understanding what we need and then working within that.
All right.
All right, item 10.3 is an intergovernmental agreement update on the high school student resource officers. Dr. Kincaid?
We are bringing an updated IGA with the Village of Oswego tonight. This is an extension of what we approved earlier in the year. There is no substantial change to language, but what you'll see is some changes to Exhibit A, specifically the addition of Section 3 and Section 4. Section 3 is about body-worn cameras, and Section 4 is access to live streaming security video. The draft IGA has been reviewed by Whitlaw, OPD, and the Village of Oswego. The body-worn camera was passed into legislation in February 2021. It is part of 50 ILCS 706, which is the Law Enforcement Officer Worn Body Camera Act. It does not become student record when activated unless requested and received by the school district. What we're going to do is go tonight for just information, action right when we return from break. Aurora Police Department is already live with body-worn cameras. Tentatively, OPD is going live on December 12th, but that is still currently in the works. It must be completed by 2025, but both of those police departments, to our understanding, are going earlier in the process. The second part, so Section 4, the access to live streaming, that would be one station. It would be secured within OPD. They would be providing the hardware. We, in essence, would be providing secure software. It would be controlled. The access and information is part of the IGA, hence why we want to update the IGA, and it would allow very select members of OPD access to our cameras in an emergency situation only. It would be behind locked doors and would not be open to all members of OPD. So we are bringing these 2 updates, which has been a collaboration between our district and OPD, and then once we work through and finalize these changes to the IGA with the Village of Oswego, we will be moving to our other 4 municipalities with Aurora Police Department, Plainfield Police Department, Montgomery, and Kendall County to do similar updates to their IGAs.
Can I ask a quick question? I know this wasn't a change, but I'm curious. How much, do we know how much SROs are paid comparatively in, say, Yorkville, West Aurora, Indian Prairie, Valley View, Plainfield, like districts that are near us? Do we know?
Yep, so we looked into the similar IGAs within their Board of Education, board docs. All of the IGAs, including our own, the pricing of the SROs is tied to the, essentially the union contract
Sure.
of that village. So even you mentioned like Indian Prairie, they have two separate IGAs, one with
Sure.
Naperville and one with Aurora. So it's not driven by the school district, the cost of the SROs.
I'm aware.
It's driven, yep, by the,
Do we know though?
we did not, we can reach out to the corresponding
I
police
would-
departments.
Yeah, I would like to know. I would like to know what we're paying compared to the others. And my other is Plainfield still offering a part-time SRO for free to Murphy? Is that
So-
still happening?
Yes, so we receive the services of the SRO at Murphy once a week on Fridays. And the officer comes and works with our students, with our staff. So yes, typically is here all day, once a week on Fridays.
Still waiting for the media to cover that one, but yeah, it's like I said, stuff you don't read that's interesting. Still hasn't made the press. Thank you.
Question, is there current policy in place that states when video is included in the student record?
So there is, there's different, specifically it's most tied to if the video is utilized to issue student discipline. So video can be potentially available but not considered part of the student record unless it was specifically used to issue student discipline.
Okay, so I guess my question, I'm just trying to figure out, do we need to update policy around this new camera feed? And are there additional implications because the camera feed is coming from an SRO? I don't know the answer, but I'm just speaking out loud what I'm thinking. And so I know we need some type of policy or an update to that current policy, or maybe it does include this, but I don't know how I feel about it coming from the SRO and if that matters, but I just wanted to say it out loud.
Yeah, Eugene, this is Maureen. I believe your current policy on student records covers it, and Heather accurately stated that essentially, typically, any of your surveillance camera video is surveillance for safety purposes, for law enforcement purposes. It is not considered a student record unless, and Heather mentioned the main situation under which it is, both under state and federal law. There's also some others when it may be. And here in that number 1 in section 3 on page 10, the last sentence that was added says any such film or video which would come from the police officer will not become an educational record if not requested and received by the school district, because until the school district receives it, it's not your record. So only after you have it would you even consider whether or not it's an educational record of a specific student. And again, at that point, your policy kicks in.
Got it. Okay, makes sense.
Okay, is that it? All right, action item 11.1, approval of bills for payment. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to authorize the payment of bills in the amount of $2,360,104.09 as presented.
Second.
Whoa, it's all you. Mr. Cerrone?
Yes.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Ms. Swanson?
Aye.
Ms. Doyle?
Aye.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Action item 11.2, approval of cybersecurity contract with Dark Trace.
You know, I have
Yeah.
just a couple more questions.
Yeah, I've got Brent Kiger and Kevin McDonald here. I know that there were some questions about this, so we included a memo with the board agenda item. We'd be more than happy
Yeah.
to take some questions.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I maybe should have included this question. I saw that there was, one of the things that you discussed was that it was going to be a 3-year period, and then you'd reassess your needs. So when I looked at the 2 different contracts, I saw one was 2 years and one was 3 years. So how does that work?
Technically, the contract for Dart Trace is a 4-year contract.
Okay.
And the Fortis is 3-year contract.
What?
The Fortis is the SOC. The services that they would provide are human intervention, if you will.
Okay.
And so our plan was to understand the capabilities not only of the software hardware solution, but the need of the user-based services that the SOC would provide. Depending on staffing, our comfortable level or our comfort level with the software, that's why some of that was considered applicable in different years.
I have one more question. I'm sorry, Dominic, I'll let you finish.
No, I lost my train of thought. I had another question. Yeah.
Go ahead, Eugene.
Go ahead, Eugene. Yep.
My question is really, I guess it would be, I don't know if I want to direct it to Dr. Sparlin or Dr. Petsky, but well, I guess I can direct it to, so is there another option? Let's say, is this the best option? Is there another plan B? I'm just thinking about total budget. You got 514,000. Is there another way that we can perhaps do the same thing? So I'm not questioning whether or not we need it. I'm just trying to figure out how to prioritize it for today.
Yeah, I've dealt with, in my previous role as a chief technology officer, this is it's a fast evolving area, and one that we have not had the financial resources to adequately address. And so even when I first got here, this was one of the first things that was brought to my attention about the need for, some steps and processes and to get a hold of potential cybersecurity threats. So in terms of is it a priority? Absolutely. Is there something we can do for less money? The other solutions that we've looked at, in my experience, the other solutions that I've dealt with are all between $200,000 to $220,000. So based on the little bit more comprehensive nature of this, having that the automation, having the AI aspect to look at our traffic, and then to also have the human component to help us with the mediation is key. And the other place where this became a priority for me, or where I knew that this was something we should be doing, is the cost of cybersecurity liability insurance is skyrocketing because the number of attacks and potential of breaches is much larger than they used to be. And it's a matter of the inconvenience, how our tolerance for the risk. I know we've got our insurance company, we've got all of our other districts telling us that this is something they're investing time, energy, and effort into. And if we don't do this, it puts us kind of behind the curve in terms of what our neighbor districts have in place and are doing.
All right, so let me follow up to that. Which neighbor district or which district in general did we look at, talk to, collaborate with this? Or did we just listen to the salesman? I mean, did you actually go out and talk to another school district who has this product and who is using it? And
School district, Joliet and 86, they have this dark trace component in their district already, and they've had it for a few years, and they
loved it. It stopped an attack the first week it was implemented. So we did talk to neighboring districts that had the dark trace product. What else?
So only Joliet?
Yeah, Joliet was the one, the nearest reference for the dark trace component.
The issue is it's kind of a good place to be. I think that they vetted the solutions pretty well. I know in other districts that I've worked in, we kind of lock ourselves into another solution, and to migrate from where we were to what we want is difficult to do. So there's some districts that I'm sure would like to have this, but they've already implemented another cybersecurity solution, whether that be a professional service company or another software solution. It's hard to migrate from one to the other. And this one I feel gives us the best of both worlds. It gives us the hardware, it gives us the automation in getting to know a large amount of traffic and data, but then also that one extra piece with Fortis gives us that human component too, to help make sense of the traffic that it's seeing.
Yeah, I remember. If I recall, there were a couple dates on those. The bids were through 12/8 and 12/12 or something like that. So if this were to be delayed, what risk are we at for pricing?
We have no indicators that the pricing would substantially increase if this were to be delayed. Our risk, honestly, is more than likely just an attack on the district. The sooner we get the product in place, the sooner we're protected.
And then Dr. Petsky made a comment earlier that helped me, but I kind of want a little bit more elaboration on it, is you said some districts would like to go to this, but they already have something in place. And so going to this, I don't know if that makes it
Right, but
just
who's gonna come out and say, yeah, we'd like to go to that, but?
What's that?
Do you know what I mean? Like, what district's gonna come out and say, yeah, I'd like to go to that, but? I don't.
Well, no, I'm asking, so basically, you're saying that would be an older solution, might have been $200,000 to $220,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
This is a next generation solution, would be about $250,000 a year.
Correct.
Is this, so are we not doing that $200,000 a year solution? I mean, is that, are we that far behind? I guess is kind of my point.
Things in place. It's like there's like a five-step component process that they presented last time. And we're doing 2 of those steps, but we really need this to implement the last 3 steps for cybersecurity, to make sure that we have the levels of protection from the multiple types of threats that could impact the district.
So when I asked the question, are we going to be above? Are we going to be, is this beyond? My concern was that we were going to be overspending.
The 200 plus the 250.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I thought that we were, kind of doing something, the 200 plus 250. So we were already doing that, and then we're adding another $250,000 a year. So does that make sense? So that was, my concern was that we were going too high in the capabilities. And we might have been able to do a little bit less, but if we're going to do less for 200 or do a better for 250, then.
Yeah, and I don't think it's fair to say, it's not that we're spending 200 here and then 250 here. It's kind of.
No, I'm saying that we're not doing the kind of the older technology.
Oh, right, we are not.
So it's
So it's not 450.
Right.
Did you see what I'm saying? Yeah.
Say that again, Eugene?
I didn't hear what did you just say, Allie, that they confirmed? This is
we're not already spending a 200,000 on something, and so we're not adding this like 450 onto something that already exists. It's 200,000.
Got it.
So the only reason that it would be ahead is because we waited.
Yeah, we'll get a better technological solution, one that's a little bit more evolved and advanced, because we're
Behind.
behind. Yeah,
Okay.
we have not had the financial resources to build this into our budget, and now we do. And we've allocated those funds, and these, Kevin and Brent looked at different solutions, and I'm confident with what they found as well.
That was my next question. So it is already built into the projected budget.
Yeah.
Yes.
Correct.
That I got.
Okay, is that it? So can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the cyber security contract with Dark Trace pending final attorney review.
Second.
Ms. Doyle?
No?
Ms. Swanson?
No.
Mr. Cerrone?
Yes.
Ms. Simulton?
Yes.
Mr. Gatewood? Mr. Gatewood?
Oh,
Eugene?
Sorry, I was on mute. Sorry. Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
No.
Mr. Ploger?
No.
Motion fails 4-2,
4-3.
4-3. No, wait, who didn't, was it Lori? Did I get Lori?
Yeah.
4-3, no.
I was a no.
Okay.
Yes or no?
All right, action item 11.3, approval of cybersecurity contract with Fortis. Can I have a motion, please?
Can I,
I make a motion.
Oh, wait, we've got some more discussion.
so, given that,
Yeah, this one's pretty much irrelevant.
Yeah.
so,
So what is,
Because
so
this
what
seems
is
like
the
this
takeaway
is-
here? What is the takeaway?
the takeaway here
So
is
that
if we
they
were to
know
pass
what
the
to do.
second, it would be
No,
worthless.
I'm not talking about that. I'm
Yeah.
talking about what is the takeaway
No, for
from the,
cybersecurity. Yeah,
from
what
the
is
s-
our plan, or what direction would the board have for Kevin and Brent moving forward, knowing that we have a large cybersecurity footprint risk? So what would you like us to do? Go back and talk to other companies, see about getting the price lowered, see about getting, I'd say more
Yeah.
comprehensive coverage, but
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is that was the most comprehensive coverage right there.
I
So-
can offer mine. I'm sorry, I can't see who's about to talk 'cause I'm on the phone, but I'm going to look for a product that has a better overall success rate and also better pricing.
better what?
Pricing.
Oh,
A higher quality product with a different price tag.
okay, now based upon what you all know so far, what you know, can you accomplish that?
No, I don't believe so.
So then what do we do if those two things can't be accomplished? Because we're just leaving ourselves open.
Then you find somebody who
believe
can.
that,
It sounds like,
then we're talking about a different scope and scale of services.
You want to elaborate on that one?
I'm happy to do that in a further discussion otherwise, but I mean, it's a little bit more involved than I think we wanted to do during action item.
okay. All right, so then, do we need to go through this vote on 11.3?
You could postpone it indefinitely, and then it just dies, and
11
or vote on it. But yeah, as someone said, obviously, the vote should be no, so I would recommend vote on tabling it indefinitely.
Okay, I make a motion, can I have a motion to postpone 11.3, approval of cybersecurity contracts with Fortis, and postpone it indefinitely?
I make a motion to postpone item 11.3, approval of cybersecurity contract with Fortis until further discussion.
Second.
Ms. Simulton?
No.
Ms. Swanson,
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood,
Aye.
Ms. Doyle, Ms. Doyle,
She's muted.
Motion to table, aye.
Ms. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Cerrone,
Aye.
Mr. Ploger.
No.
So motion passes 5-2. Okay, action item 11.4, approval of property tax appeal intervention. Can I have a motion, please?
I just want one. We just took out the legal firm. That is the only change to this.
We also changed my title to the superintendent or designee, so it's Dr. Sparlin, superintendent, and the attorney is just a general attorney.
Perfect, thank you. I make a motion to approve the resolution for the property tax appeal intervention as presented.
Second.
Mr. Ploger,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Cerrone,
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood,
Aye.
Ms. Swanson,
Aye.
Ms. Doyle,
Aye.
Ms. Simulton.
Aye, motion passes 7-0. Action item 11.5, adoption of 2022 tax levy. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the 2022 tax levy as presented.
Second.
Real quick before we vote, so Dr. Sparlin, do you have some general specifics on what we'll have to do or won't be able to do if we do not pass this levy?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I appreciate you asking the question, Jared. Really, if you think about it, not passing the levy would really virtually wipe out a lot of the work we've done over the last 6 years in regards to getting our school district on a better financial footing. As we talked about earlier this evening, some years ago there was a decision not to levy for a few years. We heard this evening what the impact of that was, and we also, I think we also already answered this question a little bit through some of that conversation earlier. There's a lot of reasons, why we need to levy. And I think they all really kind of circle around the reason why we need a fund balance and why we need to grow that fund balance. And so we kind of already mentioned that a few minutes ago. But, our current fund balance doesn't allow us to make payroll during the school year. So we have to, the result is us having to issue tax anticipation warrants, or TAWs. And what we're doing there is essentially borrowing money and paying hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to borrow money to make payroll, and over the course of many years, that equates to millions of dollars. So that's been a practice in 308 for many years, and it's a practice that needs to stop, and it can stop if we grow our fund balance to the appropriate level. We talked about EBF. You had mentioned that earlier. If EBF isn't funded at the minimal levels, or let's say it's prorated or not funded in the future, it's very important to have a fund balance so that we can draw down from that fund balance instead of making cuts, because we've already gone through the cut process for a number of years, and we know what we went through and what we did. And we should use this phrase, there's no more meat on the bone. We've really cut down as far as we can. Anything else really truly affects kids. And I think the third item would be, we also, every 5 years or so in our district, we issue debt service extension bonds, and to pay for our much needed capital projects. And this is a practice in our school district that really needs to stop. It's been something we've done for many, many years. And to be able to get to that point, again, we need to build a fund balance. You can't do both at the same time, though. So right now, we've issued the debt service extension bonds that we have monies to pay for over the next few years. And while we do that, we need to build the fund balance up. So when these monies that we have from the DSEB are done, we don't have to do it again for another 5 years, because we'll have the fund balance and we'll be able to allocate the monies to our capital projects that we need to do it operationally. And in Dr. Petsky's 5-year projections, we have started allocating the monies towards it as we start to build the fund balance, but we can only do that because we've already sold the debt service extension bonds. I think I was probably a whole lot more of an answer to the question you just asked, but those are 3 things that come to mind right off the bat when it comes to not levying or levying.
Thank you.
And if I could clarify just one point there, your question, what if we don't levy? I think there's a little confusion there. If we don't levy, if this doesn't pass tonight, I can't file it with the county clerks to give us the authority to collect taxes from the community. I think the question you're really asking me is,
Yeah, sure,
what is
yeah.
the amount we should levy?
Right,
If
right.
we don't levy, that's a problem.
Right,
But what's the amount?
Right.
I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I'm never going to vote to increase taxes. And I was part of that 2013, 2014, 2015 that said they wouldn't. And I realize all of the conversations that are going on here, but when you say you leave money on the table, I see I can't tax people out of their homes. So it's a difference of opinion.
It's
to
not.
be sure.
It's
But
not because
wanna
I don't
argue
want
about
to
it.
tax them. I don't want to tax them either.
I don't want to argue about it.
I don't want to argue. I want to know what the cuts are then.
I'm going to stand up for people who,
I am also standing up for people. I want to know what the cuts are then. I mean, did you ask Dr. Sparlin for a list of cuts?
I did not.
Well, because okay, so what have we learned then? I'm not arguing with you. I'm asking what we learned. Because, like, you didn't have to sit up there underneath bright lights and cut meat down to the bone. I did, okay, from that. And so that's why I'm frustrated. And that's why I get upset about this, because it's not just, nobody woke up today and said, let's do this. Nobody did that.
Okay, so
what are we cutting then?
No,
Tell me what to cut.
No, we don't have to have that conversation.
and we
She
don't, no.
indicated that.
Of course not. We'll leave it
she
for
doesn't
somebody else.
agree.
Well, it's not that I'm going to leave it to somebody else.
That's
Listen,
what
there
you
are
did
things
last
that we
time.
could do before we cut. We could create preventative maintenance, right? That would save hundreds of thousands of dollars. We could
With
stop
what
selling
money?
D-sub bonds for the chillers and the heaters. We could expand the Erlen screenings and cut down on some of the IEP needs that we have. We could turn off the lights, for God's sakes. We could turn off the lights and save 20 to 25%. Like, there's a million things we can do, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to ask people for a 9.58% increase, knowing that I won't get that, but I'm not going to do it.
Okay.
Well, I mean,
everybody's got their
but why not?
opinions
Like,
and their
so will
choices.
those things cut? Well, I mean, like, if that's legit, so will those things cut? I mean, hey, I'd rather cut than do that. So would that work?
Let's return the buses we're not using. There's 100 things we could do.
It depends on how much money that realizes. I mean, if it depends on how much you want to levy. If we hold the
John,
levy
Dr. Petsky, the answer is no.
Yeah,
We already answered the question earlier.
Right.
It doesn't allow us to increase our fund balance. It doesn't allow us to have the monies for the capital projects. You don't pass the levy, then we go into an automatic deficit situation for our operational budget, and those other things can't be done.
I just like if I had ideas on how to save the district money, I wouldn't just sit with it. I would be
These are
putting
100
it as
things
an
we've talked
information
about over the
item on the
meetings.
board. I don't understand that
For
process.
4 years, we've been talking about all these things.
All right, can I have a motion, please?
Makes sense.
I made a motion.
Okay, sorry.
2022 tax levy as presented.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Ms. Doyle?
Aye.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Mr. Cerrone?
Aye.
Ms. Swanson?
No.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Ms. Simulton?
Aye, motion passes 6-1. Action item 11.6, approval of student information system. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the contract with Power School Student Information System for a 42-month term as presented.
Second.
Mr. Cerrone?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Ploger?
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood?
Aye.
Ms. Doyle?
Aye.
Ms. Swanson? Ms. Simulton?
Aye, motion passes 6-1.
Sure.
Action item 11.7.
That was 7-0.
No.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
It was 7-0.
7-0.
Oh, you said no?
No, I
7-0.
7-0.
Oh, okay. 11.7, action item 11.7, approval of building administrator contract. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the building administrator contract as presented.
Second.
Ms. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood,
Aye.
Mr. Saron,
Aye.
Mr. Ploger.
Aye.
Ms. Swanson,
No.
Ms. Doyle,
Aye.
Ms. Simulton.
Aye, motion passes 6-1. Action item 11.8, approval of personnel report. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the personnel report as presented.
Second.
Ms. Doyle,
Aye.
Mr. Ploger,
Aye.
Mr. Gatewood,
Aye.
Ms. Swanson,
No.
Mr. Saron,
Aye.
Ms. Simulton,
Aye.
Ms. Johnson.
Abstain?
The motion passes 5 yes, 1 abstention, 1 no. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
All in
Second.
fa-